Week number 4 of the Shadowverse Open begins right now. North America is about to be underway. We saw Europe yesterday, and there were some good developments in that round robin, and we're going to see how North America is going to end up. I'm Rainy, that's Exodium, and joining us as well, Envy Bear. Good to see all of you back on desk here. I love all your bow ties.
Thank you. They're so cute, I know.
I feel like they're... Do you have like a bow tie for every day of the week?
I have 24 bow ties.
Oh, wow.
That's almost every day of the month.
That's almost every day of the month, that's right.
Just need to get 7 more for you, and then we'll be good. But let's look at the tournament overall, and what the journey has been, and what is left. We went through the qualifiers, then the Contenders Cup for the World Grand Prix, and now we're in the Invitational. There's 5 weeks of Invitational play. We're in week number 4, so it's nearly to its close. And after the Invitational wraps up, we're going to the regional finals. That's the top 6 players from the North American region going to a double elimination bracket seeded based on their performance in the round robin. That's right now, seeded by their performance to see who will become the grand champion. These are the things that they can win for doing well in the round robin and doing well in the regional finals. So first, 4th place from each group. So that means there's 2 groups of 6. If you get 4th, you get $250 US. If you're the top 3 from each group, then you move on to the regional finals, which we talked about a little bit. And this is where the cash prizes are hiding. First place, $6,500. 2nd place, $3,000. 3rd place, $2,500. 4th is $1,500. And 5th and 6th, $950 US. That's a lot of money. Skrilla. Even if I just got $250 US, I could get a lot of ice cream with that.
Dude, that's good enough. That's a lot of hot Cheetos. That's good enough for me.
A lot of hot Cheetos. Yeah, hot Cheetos. Yeah, that's one thing I never really considered. Maybe I should just get mounds and mounds of hot Cheetos and just bathe in them. And come out looking all orange. Let's take a look at the schedule of matches today and see who is ready to go right now. Fantasy and Red will be kicking off the day. And then we've got Bottles versus Gengar, Applicants versus Celeste, Piao versus Vettu, Care Package versus Hackrox, and then JZ versus Underwear. So, I think that the North American region is going to be a little bit crazy. I feel like the competition is very close. The only exception to me in my mind is JZ. Now that was true of Europe last week or yesterday, but Akamaru Red took a loss in his game in a very outlandish fashion. I think a few misplays happened. You know, just some a lot of it too.
Crazy lethal setups in general happened.
Yeah. And some very intricate lines of play were laid in front of him, I think. Do you think JZ will fall today as well, Exodium, as the person who predicted that?
I predicted the upset yesterday, and I believe it's going to happen again today. Ooh. I feel it in my bones. And we can't discount Applicants. Applicants is also undefeated.
Yes.
And I think he's shining this season. I think he's risen to the top, and I think he's there to stay.
Yes, Applicants is also doing very well. And this is what I mean. You know, I think the North American region is super close in competition. JZ has a huge pedigree behind him, but we'll see if he can live up to that. Let's talk a little bit about this first match that we have coming up. Fantasy versus Red here. And it's going to be Rune and Blood on the side of Fantasy, and then Blood and Shadow on the side of Red. The 2 banned crafts is going to be Swordcraft for Fantasy and Runecraft for Red. What are the decks we're looking at here, Exo? Kind of what is the high level?
Yeah, so Fantasy brought all aggro, no surprise, and Red did the best thing he could do and banned out his sword deck, which of course Fantasy is known for, and he doesn't lose much with sword. And then he's going to be playing against an aggro deck as well and Mid Shadow. So really, it's pretty even matchup. Mid Shadow might have a slight edge in the aggro matchups, but it's really just going to come down to solid play this match.
All right, well, let's talk a little bit about the Swordcraft deck here that Fantasy is fielding. And Envy, I know how much you love Swordcraft, or at least did before. I don't know where you stand on it now. No, you're not so keen on it now? What happened?
No.
What happened?
They're just they don't do anything, you know, like Rune does all this cool stuff where they're like, you know, I'm Levi, don't you forget, and then Rune's just like, or sorry, Sword is just like,
it's got frogs.
It used to have frogs. We don't have frogs anymore. They got nerfed.
Okay. No more frogs.
You know what it does have? No more stop the frogs.
Period. No frog.
Let's talk about.
They just don't do anything.
Let's talk. Let's talk about Fantasy's deck and a card that has been used in Swordcraft for a very, very long time. It's been around for almost as far as I can remember. I feel like any Swordcraft deck runs this. Always Command. Envy, talk to me a little bit about this card. And it summons a pirate and a Viking. That sounds pretty cool. That sounds like something that I would, you know, play as a kid. Either a pirate or a Viking or something like that.
Yeah, it's very, very vague. A pirate and a Viking swap. The Viking is a 2/3 ward, and the pirate is a 2/3 ward, and the Viking is a 3/2 storm. So for 6 play points, you get a 3/2 storm on the right always. That's important, and a 2/3 ward on the left of it. So it's important because if you have 4 things on the board, you'll always banish the storm. So don't do that, kids. But basically, it's like you said, it's been important for Sword for a very long time. 6 play points to get a 2/3 ward and a 6/3 storm divided into 2 bodies is just, it's always been like the golden standard for what Sword wanted to do, even back when we played Otahime. Alwidus was just that perfect blend of like defensive and offensive game plan.
And here we see the list, which a Fantasy has titled Control Sword. I'm inclined to believe otherwise. Maybe he's controlling the game by ending it, you know?
Yeah.
I'm not so sure I'm convinced about that one. But we've seen this list quite a lot. I think it's transformed a little bit, what with things like Council being kind of changed and now removed from the list entirely. What are the kind of interesting comments here that we can make about this aggressive sword list and its transition into its current iteration, Exo?
Yeah, sure. So the biggest changes that we normally see are around the 1 and 2 drops. It just depends on what the player prefers. Like sometimes we see Oathless Knight, sometimes we don't. And the other big contention is the 4-drop slot. So we see any number of cards in the 4-drop slot. Fantasy chooses to run Geno, but of course we've seen Peppo, we've seen White General, we've seen any number of different cards in the 4-drop slot to take over the place of Ephemeris since she got nerfed. So really it's just about how you want to play your 4th turn. Other than that, what's the quickest way you have to deal damage, and you put it all together and you got a deck.
And of course, Red decided he didn't want to deal with that. You know, just does not want to face.
No.
When do you think, and even considering the options that you have now, is Sword on Curve still too strong for people to handle? Is that why Red just says don't want to deal with it? Yeah.
Yeah.
If it gets a perfect draw, it's one of the most unrealistic decks in the game to try to stop for any deck. It's just it unloads so much power, and honestly, with cards like Roundtable Assembly, I mean, you're talking double Juliet plus Evo on turn 5. We're talking about 6 damage, and that's on top of whatever aggressive start you've had. It's really hard to come back from that.
Well, I mean, we won't get to see it in action in this particular game, but it is interesting to consider that Sword still has a space here, and there they are. Starting out with Shadow versus Rune. You've played Rune quite a bit. How do you feel about this matchup? What do you think of Fantasy's chances?
Well, I will say we talk about this matchup all the time. Honestly, it's just if you can get the right cards like Master Mage Levi in the mid game, and you have enough card advantage in the end game with cards like Wizard of Savage to kind of push you over the edge, you can definitely get there. But mid Shadow just is a more consistent deck.
We do talk about this a lot. Like this matchup, just mid Shadow in general. Like we see Dirt Rune a lot, but mid Shadow in general. How long have we been seeing mid Shadow? Like every other game, I think it's been since Tempest release, right?
In EU, it dropped off a little bit yesterday, but today almost every player is bringing it again, so it's back.
Yeah. Well, North America they've always been like, you know, they're still playing Sword, right? Like they're
right.
very by the book, very like, you know, meta oriented, I think.
And that goes a lot to say about the NA side. NA likes to play meta. They like to play meta. They like to tune their decks very specifically to how they like to play, but they don't really metagame that much. That's not to say it's a bad strategy. It just means to say that they're okay with playing meta versus meta and just I'm better than you this match type of mindset.
Oh yeah, they're totally up for. They're gonna grind a matchup 1,000 times, and they're gonna play that matchup in tournament every time. That's
right.
what NA likes to do.
And that's why we see a lot of our NA players just bringing, decks that they really like. Like, we'll see Fantasy bring Sword probably every week, and just things like that. Just players are very comfortable with what they know. The players playing against them know this. That's why you see the bans. So I feel it's very comfortable, and all the players know what they're doing. It's just now they have to execute.
Exactly. It's all about comfort picks, really, and it kind of always has been. I think as long as I've been casting North America, they've been going for comfort picks.
Yeah, and I don't mind it at all. I mean, it's a lot better than playing a strategy that you think might win and then just making a mistake on a turn because you haven't played the matchup enough. So I mean, if NA players put in the amount of time that I think they do into their play testing, playing meta decks just makes sense.
Definitely. This matchup is, I think we've always talked about this matchup in particular being very weighted towards Dirt Rune, and I don't know, I think Fantasy agrees. He's just going to go face. He's not even going to bother clearing the skeletons at all in any way.
Nope, and he's got pretty much the perfect setup. I mean, he's got 2 Levi's left for his Evolve Orbs. He's got the Master Mage Levi that he just freshly got off of the Evolve. And he's got Wizardess of Oz's plus Dance of Death. I think he's feeling pretty comfortable right now.
He is kind of like, I don't know, like you mentioned he has Wizard of Oz, but I feel like his hand's kind of bricked in a sense that double Wizards of Oz is not very synergistic together. But he does have triple Levi, and Levi, as we know, is like one of the biggest reasons why this deck is so good against mid shadow.
Yep, and he's already got the sigil set up for the turn 6 Levi, and like I said, double Evos for the other Levi's. And the thing is, like, because he's playing so proactively, Red has to respond to him. He has to play reactively, which I believe will give Fantasy enough time to get these Wizardess of Oz's in play and get some value on them.
That's true. That is true. It's also kind of it's interesting that Fantasy was able to take that aggressive role too. Having gone second, he was able to still put the onus on Red to react to things he was doing, which is not something somebody can do always when they're going second.
Yeah, that's a huge point to actually talk about as well. If you're on the draw, if you can get the initiative back in your favor, like you're the attacking player and the first player has to start reacting to you, those extra Evolve Orbs actually come in so key because you just have more. And if you're the aggressive player, that just means more damage, a lot scarier boards, and so on.
It is definitely. I think Fantasy was taken aback right there by that evolve, right? Because we know it was a pre-evolve for Master Mage Levi, obviously. I think he knew that too. But he's probably he's going to evolve Master Mage Levi over this. What do you think of this play? This is very interesting.
I like it. So if Red's idea is I'm going to start out card advantaging you now, getting rid of that last Evo point, like I said, it's so important to deal damage. If you can get it on defense, then you can kind of push the favor back into your side. And especially if you know how it's going to evolve, this sets up the zombie party perfectly. So I like everything about that evolve from Red.
That was very interesting. We saw on the camera that he made like a sort of like hand gesture, like he knew that would happen almost. Like
Yep. He's just like, oh, I know, and that plays exactly into what I was talking about. The players know exactly how these matchups are going to go. Yeah. They know what to expect, and they just make the best plays, consistent with what they have.
Exactly. They've run the numbers, 100 times. I don't know how many Easter's Fantasy is gonna, probably account for here, but surely not 3, obviously. There's no way.
No. And I like this. I mean, in a matchup such as this, a lot of times we see our Shadow players take their Ektars and just hold on to them and just, play super value games. But I think Red knows in this matchup you don't have a lot of time. Cards like Mutagenic Bolt, Dance of Death, and things like that will continue to keep dealing damage to you. And if you don't end the game fast enough, you're just going to fall over.
I love seeing the player cams. I love seeing the sort of, because Red, like you mentioned, he knows that he has to be aggressive to win this, and like every time second Oz comes down, second Dance of Death comes down, he's just like shaking his head like yeah of course.
Yeah, we know how this goes. And it looks like he's actually now firmly in the lead here, unless Fantasy can do something to stop this. Now he is going to be able to go back up to 6. He's going to be able to wipe the 2/2. But that gives Red the chance to top deck for a victory here.
This is an interesting line. He's not going to kill the 2/2.
This is super scary. This just means Red needs
I mean, he did heal a lot. He
something to
did double
push over.
Carls.
He did. There's a lot of heal.
Double Carl's pretty good.
Leaving 7 damage on board, though. It'd scare me.
See if we can find that
Man.
third Eek that I mentioned. He doesn't actually have all 3, but it was close.
So what's interesting about that Soul Conversion is that he chose to Soul Convert the 2/2 in play instead of playing the Soul Squasher, which actually took him away from having a lethal play. So something to consider, just, you know, if you have a Soul Squasher plus a Soul Conversion and 10 play points to work with, you can still find your Ektar and go for that lethal push.
Right, if that is if finding Eater is the play that you're trying to go for, yeah.
Yeah.
But that's not gonna matter. Piercing Rune off the top is gonna end it. Fantasy found so much burn that game. Like he top decks. I think Red's actually
Both of
astonished how
them.
much burn was found
Both
off
of-
the top of his deck. Like,
Yeah. Fantasy's like, what? Red's like, a what? What's going on here?
yeah, Red's just shaking. He's like, no, that's not normal. That's not how this happens in the runs that I've done.
Fantasy's got his prayer hands up. He's like, thank you, O RNG gods, rune gods. Thank you.
And that wasn't even. I don't think Fantasy even plays. You know, I'll go back and double check myself here, but I think I'm right. I don't think Fantasy even runs. Yeah, he doesn't. He's not Sazone. He doesn't play Demonic Strikes even. So like, finding that much burn that quickly. A lot of it got reduced by Oz as well. He played, I think, 3 spells off of Oz. So
Yep, and he got the good happenings, like evolve the Piercing Rune down to 2 play points, but then of course Wizard of Oz to make it down to 1, and able to use it before it gets discarded, which is really cool. Something to note, guys, if you didn't know, if you play Wizardess of Oz first and Evo with a Piercing Rune in your hand, that cost will go back up to 2. So make sure you guys remember that.
it does change the cost to do. It doesn't actually use the word reduce. It usually always does, but Oz, you know, kind of ruins that.
Yes. Goes against the grain here. So Aggro Blood versus Aggro Blood. This is pretty much just a mirror matchup. There's not really a bunch of back and forth between the card choices in these players' decks, so this is really going to come down to type play.
Truly will. And I think, you know, on top of type play, I think the first second is obviously going to make a pretty big, you know, change in this. But I think if Fantasy can shift his play style around, can be a little bit more defensive, then he's probably got this in the bag, given Red's current hand.
Yes, Red has a really nice opener, but he doesn't have a lot to fall back on after that opener's done. I speak too soon. Razor Claw, of course, off the top. One thing that Fantasy does have in his advantage, and this is like something I think that Blood kind of mutated into over time with aggro. You never used to see Scarlet Saboire in aggro Blood, but I think it gives it this whole new game where you can actually go into the late, and it doesn't always matter if you're on the play or the draw, because it kind of gives you the tempo back. With the extra Evo point specifically, if you have multiple Saboires in the mid game, I think you can actually take back over the game, regardless of going first or second.
Right, she's kind of like shoved herself into every Blood deck now. I think people realize, like, this card's just really good. Let's just play this in everything.
Yeah. Really great card. And unfortunately for Fantasy, he didn't have a turn 1 play. He doesn't have a great way to use all of his play points this turn. I think Angel of the Word would have taken more damage off the board, but I think Fantasy wanted to use his play points a little bit more effectively and put up the board himself this turn. But it's a little bit of a risk, taking that extra point of damage.
It definitely is. And I mean, just like you said, that Razor Claw top deck before popping the Vanya off the board was pretty significant. It's going to allow Red to just, you know, keep that aggression going, and he's still drawing more damage. So
Wow. Yeah. That was way better than a Caraboss to have on 6 play points in this situation, and this is just lights out. Unless Fantasy can draw some type of a ward or another life gain effect that he can play on top of Saboire, which I don't think exists.
I don't think that, no, not even Diabolic Drain would exist here.
No.
That's going to be very unfortunate. Even though he wipes the board completely, Red knows goodbye.
Yeah.
The game is over.
And like I said, that one extra damage will come into play here and just end Fantasy.
That was a really good Razor Claw top deck. His hand did not look amazing, but Razor Claw to control the board, Night Horde to control the board, like, it just allowed Red to push so much.
Good job.
He got so aggressive.
Yeah. This is one of the things, like, I've faded in and out of Night Horde and, like, that synergy and stuff like that, but when you're on the play and you have Night Horde, especially when you have Vanya in play, it just, there's no card that just feels as good to play. You know, Geno might be a close second, but, like, when you have everything going for you, I think Night Horde might be one of the best on-the-play 4-drops.
Well, I mean, Night Horde, you know, it's always going to leave behind 2/1/1s, right? Which Geno only does if it enhances itself. So, you know, Night Horde, it does 2 less damage to the follower, but when you're on the play, like you said, I don't think it matters. You know, 4 play points to kill a 2 or 3 drop is very, very easy.
Especially if you have those little bat tokens out already from Summon Bloodkin on the second turn or something like that. I mean, you can take out you can take out something huge. Even an Ancient Elf that's been pumped, you can take out sometimes.
4 play points for 4 damage and make 2 bats. Oh, that sounds way too good.
Feels good. All right, and this match is going to be over quite quick, of course, as we've been seeing, and we've got one more aggro versus a mid-range strategy here, the aggro deck on the play, so I'd say Fantasy has a slight advantage. We'll see if Red can stop it.
Aggro is definitely difficult for mid shadow, I think, sometimes, but Red, I'm assuming, I don't want to get these lists mixed up, but I'm assuming Red is also playing he's also playing Ceres, I assume, right?
Yeah, I would hope so.
Yeah, he's playing 3, of course. Yeah,
I'm not gonna look at the list.
I would hope so
as well.
He's
not playing Ceres. He might be a little crazy. The one thing that I actually find odd about all of these shadow decks that people are now playing, like quote-unquote meta shadow decks, they're all playing Andriolphus instead of a more beefier 2-drop, and I think that really suffers in matchups like this, especially when you're on the draw. You just don't have the attack on your followers that you really want to combat the board.
I can see that. I can see where you say that, but Andriolphus, it can blow people out pretty hard.
That's a good retort. That's a good retort. Okay, I'll give you that.
It's a pretty good reason when you think about it. I mean, Andriolphus is if you evolve that, your entire hand, like thinking about the fact that your entire hand now cycles, just means that you outlast any other mid-range deck. He's even gonna choose to do that over Ceres this turn. That's how good that is for him.
That's crazy. And this will allow him to play his other Andriolphus and allow him to just start powering up cards. And Fantasy doesn't have a lot of gas left in the tank. I mean, he's got a nice little word play this turn, but... And every time I say that, they always draw the Razor Claw. But you know what?
They always do,
I'm gonna
right?
Keep saying it. I'm gonna keep saying it.
The reverse caster curse.
That's right. Got a terrible hand. Never mind. My hand just got a little bit better.
But it's interesting because he had a very similar hand to what we saw Red on the play with last game, right? And remember, Red, was on the play. He had to top deck that Razor Claw into the Night Horde to make that, a thing to come back from that. But Fantasy did that a turn late. He drew that Razor Claw a turn or 2 after Red did, right? Because Red drew it on 3. Fantasy drew it on 5. So it's much different.
Now he's got to deal with this Ceres. I think this will force the Caraboss out unless Fantasy top decks something, because he has to get that off the table. And he already has the Razor Claw, so he's on his way to finding lethal. It's just, it's going to be tough from this point, because Fantasy's going to be locked on play points, of course, because of Caraboss's effect. And he'll just have to dig his way out of this one.
Right. To be fair to him, though, Caraboss is a very, very powerful effect, so...
And for those of you out there watching,
there's also not a Soul Squasher available to Red, so...
That's true. So easy removal for the Caraboss. What Caraboss actually does, guys, if you didn't know, basically for the rest of the game, and they stack if you have multiple Carabosses that you've played, at the end of your turn, your opponent will take a damage and you draw an extra card. So it gives you that card economy, and it also deals some extra damage, but it does stop your play point development. He will now stop at 6.
Ooh, very interesting choosing to kill Andriolphus there instead of go face with the extra 1.
I like it. I think he's now slipping into this mindset of Caraboss is going to carry me now. I don't really have to overextend on the board. I want to make sure that I can't take any damage here. I think it's a smart play.
Definitely has that. It feels that kind of way. Yeah, I think he's in the mindset of Caraboss will end the game eventually if I just last for 14 turns. Then Caraboss will win.
Yes, 14 turns, quite a long time. However, you do get to play other spells on your turn.
Also, I mean, drawing 2 cards every turn is pretty good, I've heard. I don't play card games that often, right? But I've heard that's pretty okay.
Ooh, interesting line here. I almost thought he would have gone for the Blood Wolf into the Bone Chimera just to get the same amount of damage while also trying to keep the board cleaner. But this does prevent one less damage from an Ektar play, so...
That is true. I think honestly, I like all of that actually. I think just going face with everything. Once you have Karabos pressuring your opponent, it really, really does put kind of an awkward. It puts them in an awkward situation where if they don't clear your board every single turn, you know that damage adds up way too fast, way too fast.
We're seeing red play right into that. It's just I have to defend, and I hope he doesn't get there. However, I'm pretty sure this
is also not very good.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure this Ektar is going to come down and have a field day.
It's not quite lethal, though. It's one off. No.
Is it? I feel like, yeah, I feel...
4 times 4 is 16. Yeah. I don't know why I did 4 times 3 is 12. And it was like, there's not a 3-1 on the board.
Yeah, those are now 1-1s.
Right now.
Yeah, Red's doing his little happy dance. And this match is over.
Wait. Fantasy, I don't know. He like put his head back, like there's no way he has an Ektar, right? I don't know, you know.
Yeah, zero chance that one of these 3 Ektars in hand does not exist. Yeah. Oh, there he goes.
The showboat.
That's good. Red, get happy. Taking that match, awesome.
Red takes the win over Fantasy. I don't know what that was all about, but Red was pleased that he won. He did it.
I mean, he won. He can be happy, right? You know?
What did he?
He's styling.
Did you get to read what was on the back of his sweater?
I didn't read.
It was.
I didn't see it.
Well, I'm gonna assume because of the camera, it was probably backwards, so it'd be pretty tough to read. But I'll have to ask what it said, because he seemed pretty proud about that. I like the way that the burn rune game went for Fantasy. I think it was it was a very scary choice for him to place the Carls down, but I think that it ended up working out very well. I was just trying to think through that line of play on my own and kind of figure out, what the advantages of doing that was, as opposed to just kind of barely getting yourself out of lethal and then putting pressure on. But I really actually kind of like that. And then Red, I think, just came back with, I think the decks worked for him fantastically.
Well, as far as the Carl play goes, one thing that it does do is something that we've made mention of, especially yesterday. It empties your hand faster if you do want Wizardess to be a real option, so you can draw deeper into your deck. And it just gives him that option if he wants to, while also keeping him relatively safe.
Certainly paid off for him in that particular game, but Fantasy takes the loss, and Red continues to demonstrate excellent kind of deck building and decision-making skills here. Let's take a look at the standings, and that's going to put Red up here. He's going to be 2-2 in Group A, and that moves Fantasy down to 2-2 as well. So now they are tied. Applicants continues to be the only undefeated player in the group. Lest, Bottles, and Gengar all tied at 1-2 at the bottom end of the bracket. And we'll see how that's going to change in just a bit. But if you guys want to join the tournament Discord, make sure you go to the Twitch panel. It's right underneath what you're looking at right now. If you're watching on YouTube, go to our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/NGE. Panel there at the bottom, click it. It'll take you straight to the Discord, and that's how you get any information you want via the Shadowverse Open. And sometimes people are hanging out in there a little bit. You can talk Shadowverse or whatever with them. A lot of them kind of throw around froggies and start, that gross-looking guy. I don't know.
You probably get to witness some of the trash talk, too.
Oh, yeah, some of the trash talk. There's a lot of trash out there. Talking.
That's right, yeah.
Talking trash.
I thought that was trash talk right there. You were trying to call them all trash, and you wanted to play against them.
Yeah, it's
it was a good save.
It's a really, what if I was? What would you do?
Rainy's the biggest trash talker of them all. He just acts all nice and demure on cast, but in real life, nah.
No. I'm
super angry.
I'm just really mean all the time, even on camera. You guys know. While I'm watching the games, I'm like throwing phones and I'm like breaking tables and stuff. Let's talk about the next match here. CPV Bottles versus Gengar here. And Bottles we saw playing a very interesting deck in the charity. He didn't bring it to the actual match. Well, actually, we didn't get to see because last week was a very interesting time, but. I wish that he would bring his Tier 0 Haven deck to the actual Shadowverse Open, but instead he's going to go with Dragon and Shadow against Gengar's Rune and Shadow. What are we looking at here, Exo? What does Bottles have against Gengar?
Yeah, honestly, again, it's just a slight edge. I think that the Saha Ramp Dragon is slightly better than Burn Rune in this overall matchup. And I think Bottles has a lot, like, I know he's got a fire lit up under him. He does not like to lose. He's won several of our tournaments, and he's not been doing so hot this season. And I think today is his time to shine again.
Let's take a look at a Dragoncraft deck. We see this, I mean, we can't not look at Dragoncraft, right? It's everywhere. It's everywhere. I wanted to talk about one of the cards, though, that I think you have some opinions on, Exo, but I'd like to hear what Envy's thoughts are first, and that card is Rahab. I know that it was really popular when it was first released, but since then I feel like some people have been kind of wishy-washy about it, not really including it, changing it out. I guess Master of the Draconic Arts is maybe one that I would think is a swap. How do you feel about Rahab, Envy?
So back when Rahab first came out, it was Oracle into Rahab and you won the game if you were on the play. But with the release of, like you said, Master Draconic Arts and the release of Prime Dragon Keeper, people kind of shifted away from Rahab because he didn't trigger Prime Dragon Keeper. They kind of forgot about him. You know, they're like, you know, Master Draconic Arts and Imprisoned Dragon are both doing these things that Rahab does for me, but they also trigger PDK, right? It makes sense that now that we see lists shifting away from Prime Dragon Keeper, that we see Rahab coming back because he is much beefier than both of those wards. He's got like this awkward effect where if you can't find a way to use your play points that turn, you buff Rahab incidentally, right? And like I said, Oracle on the play, when you're going first, Oracle into Rahab is devastating. Not many decks can get through that, and it's pretty strong, so it makes sense that it's coming back.
Exo, in your mind, I know you were talking about a lot in the aggro matchups, especially, that were just flooding the field. You said that Rahab is one of the key difference makers just because of the increased defense that it has. How do you feel about that card right now? How did you feel about it then? Do you think people should have still been playing it despite PDK?
Well, it depends on what your game plan is. So Rahab is probably one of the best 4-drops that Dragon has, period. It's just super solid in the early game. You can play it by itself in the late game, and it's a threat all on its own. The big key difference here is, are you playing against aggro, or are you trying to get more card advantage over the game? The reason I say that is because if you look at the 2-drop slot, you see Unica there as opposed to Dragon Summoner. And Dragon Summoner pulling Dragon followers from your deck into your hand, generally you want them to target Ayelas and Sibyls so that you can ramp faster and get more card advantage throughout the game. Bottles' list looks like it's very anti-aggro with the Unica and the Rahab, so he can afford to play it, whereas the other decks that are trying to tutor can't.
And that's going to indicate to us that Bottles is really kind of looking to play against that faster-paced game. How do you think this is going to match up against what Gengar is bringing? I know we mentioned some of the differences between that Burn Rune as opposed to Ramp Dragon, but do you feel like, Envy, that Gengar is going to have a breeze here, or is Gengar going to go down 1-3? What do you think?
Well, I mean, I always believe in Gengar. You know, I've been a Gengar fangirl for a long time. He's not like a player I would peg as aggro, but I think honestly it was a choice to bring Rahab just because it was the best. And you know, Gengar we see is he's bringing Dirt Rune, he's bringing Mid Shadow. He's just playing, you know, meta. I feel like everybody's just kind of switched to a meta lineup. So
yeah.
We'll see how it goes.
I feel like what's interesting is we've spent so many weeks in Starforged Legends playing Insanity, right? And having the meta cycle so quick. I feel like only recently have we kind of calmed down a little bit and come to a middle ground to consistent decks and things that we think are really, really working for us, and the meta is stabilizing a little bit, as opposed to before where it seemed like every week was aggro, then combo, then control, or something like that. You know?
Well, over time as the meta develops, I mean, certain decks are going to rise to the top as just being the most consistent, the best, whatever. And I think most players now, in the early stages of things, you're going to find where, you know, you can get advantage off of playing a triple aggro lineup or a triple combo lineup. Now, since all the decks are kind of sorted out and what's good and what's good and what's bad is what's bad, you can kind of settle into what you're seeing right now. So I think this is just a natural state of the metagame.
Right. It is kind of weird that, the meta shifted back towards what it was before the expansion.
Right.
It's kind of interesting. I think the only really new thing we've seen is obviously Ceres in mid-range Shadow, but mid-range Shadow for the most part is exactly the same. We saw Dragon trying new things out, but here we see Dragon exactly the same again. And then Dirt Rune, I think, is probably our newest addition to the meta from Starforged now.
Yeah, like we saw it, sparingly in the last season. Like people chose to bring it against Mid Shadow if they thought that was going to be a popular deck that day, things like that, because it was really good at countering it before. And now, yeah, Burn Rune's just a great deck. We saw it fall off a little bit yesterday. It didn't really win or have a high win percentage yesterday, but played well, and with the right draws, I mean, it can really take out anything. Like we saw it, if you flow well into your burn, you can just end your opponent before they have a chance to do anything.
Exactly, right. Like, I mean, like you said, we did see it, underperform in tournament, but that's, these are our best players, going at it consistently against each other, and that just kind of happens. But I mean, if you look at Dirt Rune's stats overall in tournaments, and then look at its ladder stats, what we have to look at, it's probably consistently, I don't want to say the best deck in the game, but I think it's pretty close. It's a high contender for it, for sure.
It is, and it's because it has so many good draws that you can get into, right? Like these one-drop draws into Illusionist, into, Dwarven Alchemist. It just feels really good. Like you have so much board presence for so many turns. You can empty your hand, without even thinking about it because of Wizardess of Oz. So you can just really play aggro at, like, what I think the best way to play aggro is. It's just no thought into, I just want to push everything out of my hand and then have this great retail engine in Oz.
Mm-hmm. It's absolutely insane. Oz is, I think she's been pushed more so this expansion just because, like, the pressure of Oz followed by Master Mage Levi is just, oh my gosh, it's insurmountable. You can't really do anything about it.
Yep. I will say one of the big differences that we see that have actually changed the metagame a lot is the Staircase to Paradise. I know we talked about it forever in week 1 and week 2 because it was in pretty much every single deck. And now it's been solidified into, like Dragons, some mid-shadow players play it, neutral decks play it, that kind of thing. But Staircase adds this whole depth to control decks that it never had before. Like before, we'd see Dragon like ramp really fast and not have any threats, or have a lot of threats and not have a lot of ramp. But Staircase kind of bridges that gap and just gives it that endgame push that it needs.
Right, Staircase is a very, very flexible card. It's also being played even in, it's kind of weird this being played in Haven, like the faction that has Globe and has Sacred Plea, but I'll see a Haven player like, drop turn 1 Staircase and like double take, like, wait, why are you playing that in Haven Craft? You already have the best, one play point amulets.
It's true. Staircase is just that good. Sometimes it can take over the spot of, Sacred Plea or Globe of Stairways if you don't want to play a lot of other amulets in your deck, and Sacred Plea you find is a little too slow. Or it's the same speed of Staircase in your particular deck, and it just does more for you.
It is definitely a very powerful card. I've known it's gotten a little bit of hate from the community, but it's probably just because it's so ubiquitous, right? Like it's not because it's too good; it's because it's just everywhere, right? It's just kind of like it's a great toolbox card for everybody, right?
That's right, and we've seen it all across the board too. We've seen it in aggro decks. It's a little bit harder to use in aggro decks because it does take up a 1-drop slot essentially, so you're not dealing damage with that. However, as we saw, I think it was a couple weeks ago, Fatina brought an aggro blood deck that utilized Staircase, and he actually beat on the draw another aggro blood deck just because he had so much card quality, right? He just drew so many cards throughout the game, gained enough life to stay alive, and then just pushed at the end. It was really fun to watch.
It was definitely very interesting. I do want to talk about real quick Gengar's sort of pivotal play right there, I think. You kind of have to kill Sybil right there, but your hand is bad. You can go for Oz into a spell, but, what do you think of... I think Master Mage Levi into Sybil there is the correct play. It is the best, leads to the best lines. But what do you think of that? Like, should alternative lines have been considered there?
No. I think that was 100% the best line. If you go for Wizardess, then you're not guaranteeing that you kill the Sybil, and you have to guarantee that you kill the Sybil. And now Gengar's just in a great spot. I mean, he doesn't really have to worry about this Saha Quill. He has time to play out this Master Mage Levi this following turn. And, well, now he has the option of playing the Halo Golem. So he has lethal setup with a Wizardess backup. I think he's in an amazing spot. However, we do have to consider that Israfil's probably going to come down next turn to gain some more health. So it's all about what that Wizardess can pull, if it can end the game or not. But I think Gengar's still in a good spot, even if that first Wizardess doesn't.
Right. That was an interesting play. I think he is considering the Israfil coming down that he saw, but putting him at 6, evolving the Illusionist along with that play to put him at 6 was pretty good. Sibyl's also a pretty good card, Fred.
So let's talk about that last play too, killing the sock. Well, instead of going face there.
Well, I think he probably considered, you know, Israfel's playable. I know that for sure. So if Ford is healed no matter what, and I leave a 6-2 on the board, that'll trade. He'll heal for 4, and I'm in a worse spot, right? Because the Israfel will attack me, right?
That makes sense.
I guess was the play. Oh, that was devastating. Oh my gosh, that was like a really good top deck.
Yeah, Gengar with probably the best top deck he could have gotten. A Sigil, and a Sigil that helps clear out Sybil. And now Bottles is in a tough spot. He has to play heal here. Ooh.
Ooh. He disagrees.
Okay. Yeah, never mind. He's like, you know what?
You mean?
Forget this. Oh my goodness.
That's not quite good enough yet, though.
It's not quite good enough yet, but ooh, he didn't get it this turn. Okay.
That's pretty good, though.
That is pretty good. But Bottles is kind of out of good options here. I mean, he can play Lucifer to heal back up, but that Wizard of Savage will remain in play.
Mm-hmm. Ooh, Mutagenic Bolt drawn a little bit too late. But this is kind of like, you know, what we were talking about at the beginning of this match. Just like we were talking about, like, you know, Ramp Dragon, you think is a deck, you know, it can blow up Earth Sigils, right? And it can heal a lot. It's got a lot of board control. And here it is on the back foot, you know, like Burn Rune is just so strong that it's got Ramp Dragon on the back foot.
Yep. And it just makes every play here just hard. I mean, okay, there we go. There's something.
So cruel.
Well, Saha Loose is going to be, you know, kind of okay, but how many turns can you do this, you know?
Yep. It's not bad. This was the big push turn. I actually overlooked that, the fact that he could actually clear out the follower and gain health that turn. But without any Bahamut's in hand, this Professor of Taboos might come down and shake things up quite a bit here.
It could. Dragoon Scyther is an answer to it, though, so.
And he might save it for another Bahamut. That's always an idea, too, is just you want to save your Professors for the biggest threats that your opponents has, but it looks like Gengar just wants to push. Can't find any fault in it.
I think Gengar is, he's up on the plane. He wants to push for damage. I think he's given up on the idea of if I get breathed, you know, this board is gone. I think he doesn't care about that.
I don't think you can worry about it because, again, the other thing that you have to consider every single turn is how many cards do I have in my hand? If I draw a Wizardess, can I push with it? So just you want to empty as fast as humanly possible, even if it feels awkward. It's just like, well, I'm getting rid of all the cards in my hand for not the most advantage that I could, but I'm setting up for the best top decks.
The name's Levi. Don't forget.
And he's actually getting so close, really. This is, oh gosh, one.
It's funny, you never feel good about drawing red hot rituals in the end of the game, but these have been working.
You don't
out perfectly
at all, yeah. But here it is. He's used them twice now, like excellently. Rahab instead of a heal, you know, you kind of have to, right? Because it doesn't matter how much you heal here. But that's what I was talking about earlier. Rahab, you know, he couldn't use all his play points, and there he is, you know, buffing it to an 8/5. Like, it's gonna trade with anything.
Singular threat. This is exactly what I'm talking about. Like, even in old Dragon Mirrors, this is a play, right? Like, your opponent wipes the board, you play a single Rahab, and then you're fine. You're just like, you know what? You have to deal with this threat. It's just as big as an Israfil. It's just as big as all the other big threats in my deck, but it only costs me 4 play points. I can also play it alongside a Breath of the Salamander or something like that. So
sorrowful.
This is a big Israfil. This is huge. It's not only gonna heal him, but there's nothing in Gengar's hand to answer that. Oh gosh.
No.
Okay, sure.
Oh no. Oh no. That's
He
surrendering max
scoops it.
life.
He scoops it. Gengar, come on, my friend. Give yourself a Wizard of Savage draw chance. Come on. I know how it feels, though.
I think he'd already used 2, so he wanted to.
Oh, okay. Yeah, he might only have 2 in his deck. I do see some players running 2.
Yeah.
But that'll be game 1. Bottles narrowly escaping death on that one. Narrowly.
That was so close. That was so close.
But I did think that the Dragon deck did have a slight advantage, like I said, and now it's just going to come down to, can this Burn Rune deck win?
Against Mid Shadow?
Has a good chance.
I feel like we've seen this matchup quite a bit. Have we seen Burn Rune even lose to Mid Shadow?
Yes, we have. It doesn't happen frequently, but it does happen.
Okay. All right, I'll believe you. You know, maybe. You know, I'll believe you a little bit.
Yesterday
maybe.
It definitely happened because I don't believe Burn Rune won a single game yesterday. I take that back. It might have won a single game, but it didn't win or it lost more often than it won. I'll say that. Maybe it won a game.
Okay.
Yeah.
Bottles is very, very, he's very profoundly getting over the fact that everyone manages to go Witch's Cauldron into Illusionist always. It happens so often.
It's not so much that it just happens this game. It's the second game that Gengar's managed to do this. First game it was with Scrap Iron Smelter. It always feels bad because you're just like, how am I supposed to gain the board against this deck? And they draw extra cards because of it. It's like, stop it, man, stop it. And he has the Dwarven Alchemist again on top of it. Feels good.
Well, feels good for Gengar.
Yeah, feels good for Gengar, of course. Yes. Bottles.
He is in a
doesn't look like he
situation
feels
now
good, right?
though where he doesn't have any more sigils. So he didn't have Carl there.
Mhm.
This is his last sigil. He does get to evolve first though, so I think he's fine.
This is an interesting choice here. If you play 2/2 drops, I feel like you're just giving back the board again. If you play Saris into an Evo turn, you're kind of giving up your Saris. I think Bottles is kind of in an awkward spot here.
He was in a very awkward spot, but I actually really love that he denied Dwarf Alchemist there. It's kind of a toss-up, whether you know it's a good play or not, but it's going to end up being a great play. It's going to, you know, it feels weird to say it's going to force the Levi out, because Levi's still a great play, right?
Right.
But it made it where he couldn't evolve that to search for cards, and evolving that to search for cards would have been possibly devastating.
Mm-hmm. And that's kind of like one of those innate things about Burn Rune that just makes it really good. Like, you have extra card draw along your suite with Dwarven Alchemist and Wizardess of Oz and your Witch's Cauldron and Telescope. It just makes the deck flow a lot better. It's kind of why we see it now, and we never saw it before these cards existed, just because it wasn't consistent. You couldn't really get
Witch's
your
Cauldron
sigils and... Right, yeah.
Yeah. Witch's Cauldron and Telescope are huge about that. In fact, before those cards were printed, Magic Illusionist was unplayable. It was just, there was no way to get sigils on the board to make it useful, right?
Not very good. It's a lot less often that you draw your 3 of Scrap Iron Smelter into your Magic Illusionist every single game, and now you just have so many options to do so, yeah.
Exactly. Huge difference. Double Crimson Sorcery from Gengar. He's gonna unleash the flames.
Yep. Yeah, this is a feel-good spot for Burn Rune right here. Is he not going to use the second one? I can't see a world where he doesn't.
He might save it for Death's Breath.
But he's got the Mutagenic Bolt for that. Yeah, okay, there we go, Gengar. That's what I like to see. Yeah.
It does feel weird not having an Earth Sigil on the board when you're going into your 6, but he does have Bolt, like you said, so he should be fine.
Yeah, he's got the perfects. I mean, he can even tempo play out a Wizardess into the Bolt if he wants to, just to get more bodies in play. I think he's sitting pretty here.
I actually kind of agree with that Oz into that anyway. I think that's much better.
Yeah. Without any Evos left for Bottles to contest with, I think it's just an awesome play. And you can't let the Saris survive, and there's not really a good way. I mean, I guess you could evolve the Wizardess into it, but I wouldn't really suggest that. Could Master Mage Levi and Evo it, but that doesn't feel good either.
Master Mage Levi Evo doesn't also set up anything that matters, I think.
Right.
If you could put Bottles on a relevant life total that's not 7, I think that would be interesting, but
yeah.
Eh.
Plus, there's another side to Wizardess of Oz. If you're ahead like you are in this game, or like Gengar is rather, you kind of want sometimes Wizardess of Oz to not draw too many cards, because you don't want to discard anything the turn that you play it. So if you play this tempo Wizardess of Oz and then play into the Mutagenic Bolt, there's only one chance for another spell to be drawn off the top of your deck, and a really good chance for you to just draw a sigil for your Master Mage Levi's as well. So
right. That is very true. It's also possible that he wants to just save this combo, because if Oz doesn't draw anything better, she only has the Mutagenic Bolt to play off of. What if I bolt and he Thanes, or what if I bolt and he Ectors, flips that on me. So I think you could consider that.
The problem with this play, or this turn rather, is I think.
The name's Levi.
Okay.
Wow.
Okay. I think what he's thinking is exactly your line of thought. Is I want to save this Mutagenic Bolt for an Ektar or a Thane or a Death's Breath. I don't want to overextend now because I am as ahead as I am, and I don't mind this play at all. I don't mind it at all.
It is definitely. It's gonna feel really good for. Wow, Bottles walks right into it too.
Yep.
Oh no.
Yep.
He does get some
damage. The
damage.
other thing too is if you play the Wizardess. with the Bolt, then you kind of give an option for these Flame Rats to get out of play. So I could have seen a world where you Mutagenic Bolt and just pass there too, just to extend your lead.
Yeah.
But without, extra burn in hand that he can rightfully just cast off of this Wizardess, I think, not going for that play is pretty smart.
Bolt on this this thing would be really strong also, because it also denies that ward. You also could just bolt and not even Wizardess of Oz, because if you play Oz, you
I
give
think that
them a
would be the
chance
play
to
this
kill the
turn,
rats.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And without Shadow having any real ways to sacrifice their own dudes at the moment, Bottle doesn't have Soul Conversion, doesn't have any Demon Eaters, doesn't have anything to sacrifice his own board. These Flame Rats could just come down and just set up a lethal all by themselves.
Right. He's also not holding Blue Eyes White Dragon. He can't tribute 2 of them for that. So
Sure.
there's no way to get rid of the rats.
I know absolutely nothing about Yu-Gi-Oh! So yes, I will agree with you.
Everyone understands that one though. Come on.
No, I know Blue Eyes
excellent.
White Dragon is a thing. However, that's all I know.
Yeah, it's just a thing. Yeah, that's what it does.
It's just
It
a
eats your
thing.
own dude. He does play the Oz though, so that's gonna give a chance to Bottles to clear the rats.
That was a
Oh boy.
picture perfect top deck. I don't think he could have drawn something better there. The Scrap Iron Smelter denies the option for all these Flame Rats to die now.
Yeah, well, one of them can die, but yeah, that is true.
Yeah.
This top deck from Bottles will be pretty important. That's terrible. That's terrible.
It's not what you want to see. Yep. And
This is kinda
now
awkward.
Gengar only has to find a few extra points of damage here.
Yeah, well, I mean, no, he doesn't.
You're right. He's got Master Mage Levi and Sigil.
Or he
and-
doesn't.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Rats put Bottles at 7, and I think Bottles knows that if Master Mage Levi were to happen, now he loses the game, so...
That's true. And there's no way to kill the Wizardess this turn, so he's going to probably set up with a Death's Breath, feel bad about it because he knows Master Mage Levi is an option, and then Master Mage Levi is going to do what it does best and end the game.
Right. The card we talked about so much in the beginning is going to do its job and do exactly what we were talking about the whole time.
Yep. You know why, Envy? Because we are smart people, okay? We know things.
Yeah. Yeah, well, that's why we cast NGE. We're the best in the world, right? Totally.
Totally. All right, so now we get a nice little mid-shadow matchup here. Mirror match. Let's see if there's anything crazy about either of these players' shadow decks. Always a point of contention
seen
if they're
a few.
running Phantom House Service.
A few have been running the one of Tyrant, which is a little bit spicy, but it's not that big a
Let's see.
deal.
So Gengar.
Well, actually, two Tyrants. Wow.
Gengar's running 2 Serbs and a Phantom Howl. And Bottles is running... it looks like
Gengar has-
just the Dark Blade Fiends and Death's Breath and stuff. Did I miss Tyrants?
Did I see
No, I don't
Tyrants?
see any Tyrants. Yeah, I don't see
Never
any
mind.
Tyrants. Yeah, so the only
think I
real
read- I read
spiciness
Death.
in this matchup is the
Yeah.
2 Serbs and a Phantom Howl, but those can come into play. But no Tyrants, no crazy stuffs.
I read the word death and wanted that to be Deathly Tyrant, I think, because it was in the 6th slot also.
Yeah.
Death's Breath.
Yeah,
Deathly Tyrant.
DB's been finding its way out of mid-shadowing a lot. To be honest, it's kind of a spicy card in decks now too, if you see it or not. It's not in every single
Well,
mid-shadow deck by any means.
Like we saw last game, it gets blown out by Master Mage Levi. Like you commit to Death's Breath and it's like, I don't care, Master Mage Levi, right?
Master Mage Levi, Mutagenic Bolt, of course we know things like Bahamut and stuff like that, but you kind of want Death's Breath against the Dragon matchup so you have more board fills. But it's definitely not as safe as it used to be by any means.
It's it used to be like it's a staple on 6 play points, like Death's Breath, 9 health on board. What? That's insane. And then it's just like now it's like, yeah, whatever. That's kind of a tech card, I guess. I wouldn't really play it.
You know why? It's because Forest fell off. Forest was like the main
that's
reason
true.
why you had to run Death's Breath in your deck, and now because Forest isn't played by everybody more, sad, it breaks my heart, you don't have to play Death's Breath anymore, because Death's Breath is a great
Sword
answer
also,
to
I
roach
think.
combo turns and things like that.
Yeah, Roach combo. And then Sword, like they had a lot of followers that, you wanted to stop them from hitting you. So
Yeah, Death's Breath great against Sword as well, but Sword, as we know, has fallen off almost completely, except for a few players like Fantasy who can't get away.
we do still have our North American players playing aggro variants every now and then, but We talk about that a lot. You know, like North American players, they like Swordcraft. You know, like it happens, it comes back way too often, more than a dozen other regions
Look,
for sure.
look, Envy, there's nothing wrong with liking Swordcraft, okay? Ooh,
Bottles.
ooh,
I don't know if we
Bottles
stopped-
felt that
We're
one.
talking about Swordcraft, but that 50-50 was pretty nice.
That was a really nice setup by Gengar. He's like, you know what? If I can go for this advantageous play here, I think I might just be able to press my advantage and luck down. This is awesome. Awesome line of play.
Definitely worked out for him. Second series, though, is, you know, just as fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Sarah's always good.
Very powerful card. Honestly, Ceres, you know, one of the biggest reasons you even bother to play Mid Shadow right now, right?
Yes. It's I mean, if Ceres didn't exist in Mid Shadow, I think it would have a lot less of a win percentage versus Burn Rune specifically, and it wouldn't do as well against aggro decks as we've been seeing it do.
Mm-hmm. For sure, for sure. And Bottle's also playing, you know, the complementary, also new card, Dark Blade Fiend. Very nice that Mid Shadow got that, you know, mid-range cards in Ceres and Dark Blade Fiend. Both very, very
That's
good.
right.
I think Ceres infinitely
Yeah.
better, though, obviously.
Of course. And they're not a bad game plan to play together. We saw Blade Fiend make a huge splash at the beginning of the format and kind of fade away for a while. I think because it's not so great in your control matchups. It can set up a nice little ward to stop a combo turn or something like that. But it does use up your shadows. It means your Ektars are a little bit worse. Your Soul Squashers might not be able to be played as frequently. Things like that. So I think people went away from it. But if you know you're going to be playing mid-shadow matchups and aggro matchups, it's definitely a good slot to come back in.
Mm-hmm. For sure, for sure. You'll see the power of Ceres, you know, still dominating this board. It's very, very awkward to get rid of. It's going to require an evolve on Cerberus. It's going to require either Coco or Mimi. It's just such an investment.
Yeah, and Gengar decided to basically side skirt it last turn, but not this turn. He's like, all right, time to die. And will still trade with this Cerberus.
Right, yeah.
That doesn't
So
feel good.
even after that heavy investment, you're still losing your evolved Cerberus, and that's gotta feel bad. It's gotta feel terrible. But that's just how good Ceres is.
So for those of you out there who have not decided to make the investment into Ceres for your shadow decks, after watching a game like this, come on. Come on now.
Yeah, come on, right? Come on. Like Thane's great
Come
and
on.
everything, right? But if you're
Yeah,
playing mid-range
right.
Shadow and you're not playing triple series, why are you
I
playing
can
mid-range
see
Shadow?
if your list's really tight and you want to play enough tech cards, you might be able to drop it down to 2, but I wouldn't suggest it.
Yeah, if we're talking to ladder players here, I don't think that's even an option, really. I think you just kind of want that always.
That's fair. And now we might see a Thane into a Thane. Yep.
That's my favorite play, Thane into Thane.
This is where the game gets interesting. Who trades with what?
I think
There
a
we go.
Thane,
We can see the
well, last
evolve
of all,
as well.
probably going to be a Thane hopscotch here, I'd imagine.
Yep.
Yeah, makes
Looking
sense.
like.
That's a pretty good board. I mean, if Ictor was going to answer this on the backswing, you know, 12 shadows are available, so it is possible. You have to kill one of the whites first, and then kill the Thane, leaving up one white. So that's a pretty good board for Gengar. I like this play a lot.
Yeah, it's not bad. Bottles has a really good play that he has White King into Skull Beast into Ektar. Basically one of the best boards you can get out of an Ektar this early. Might even actually be the most value Ektar we've seen this season, this turn.
Right, that is a disgusting Ictor. It's kind of awkward to kind of like compare that to old Ictor, like the first Ictor. Like that's almost as good as first Ictor was.
Right.
And he had to have 3 cards to do it. And 12 shadows. He had to have 12 shadows there too. That was really important.
Yep. It looks like he's opting for the route to keep himself the most secure on board, which I like. That was an amazing turn.
Mm-hmm. That's kind of like what this mirror really is, though. It's just kind of like basically just swinging the board back and forth for each other.
Mhm. Interesting. Okay, decides to trade out the removal spell in hand instead of the 1/1. Again, just to keep board.
But I mean, this is Bottles' turn to answer this again. I don't know if he has it. He doesn't have a turn like last turn for sure. No way.
Definitely not. I think he's going to set up another ward with this Demon Eater just to be safe, because he has to. You always have to respect things like Ektar.
Mm-hmm. And I agree with that. He's gonna go for that too. Yeah. He draws two very kind of useless cards. Villain is kind of not great this late in the game, but Gengar's running out of steam. You know, Gengar's hand is pretty bad for this.
But as we know with Shadow, I mean, it only takes one draw, and he does have a Soul Conversion in hand. Of course, Delirium and Soul Squash are not too effective at the moment.
Ooh, Lurching Corpse. Ooh.
Ooh.
That could get really bad, or could get really. He already did this once this game. I don't know if he can do it twice. It's a 1 in 4.
That's true. So there's two interesting thoughts here. He could Lurching Corpse into Soul Conversion. That'll only let him get out of that with 6 play points. So I don't know if I like that play. I think I might take the chance. I think I might take the chance of Soul Converting the 1/1, see what happens, hope to draw Nectar as always, and then just play from there.
I like Lurching Corpse more. I think the payoff is too much.
Oh my,
gosh. Oh my gosh. Bottles is just taken aback by this.
Yeah, Bottle's like, why? Why?
That's how
I would feel if that happened to me twice in the same game. That one was even harsher, right? That was a 1 in 4 shot.
That was a 1 in 4. Yeah, the other one was a 50-50. That's whatever. That's literally a coin flip, right? This one was not 2 coin flips. That's not how that works, but you know, half the chance of a coin flip, right?
Yeah, my goodness. And this is a forced Blade Fiend. Has to play it or else he'll die.
I mean, Blade Fiend still's great here. Like, it's gonna allow, it's gonna put up a ward. It's also gonna slash one of those for free. So it's not a bad play at all.
Definitely not. Didn't look like Bottles wanted to take the chance on his Bellinus to kill that 2/1. He's not feeling as lucky as Gengar, I guess.
This is looking at. Yeah, he's not feeling lucky. I wouldn't feel lucky at this point. Like I don't know. But this is looking. Mid Shadow always does this to me. Like, you think, wow, you know, X players are ahead, and then like the turn passes, and it's like, wow, the other players are totally ahead right now.
Right.
The advantage bar just flip flops so hard.
This is because of how value oriented all the Shadow cards are. Mirror matches are just crazy, right? It's just like, there's so many different things that can happen on your turns. I mean, Nectars, Thanes, Soul Conversions, Lurching Corpses. I mean, you name it. There's just an infinite array of things that can happen.
Double thing kind of clunky here. Ooh.
Right.
Gonna kill Bellinus. I like that. I do kind of like that, actually. It doesn't even hit it can't even hit the the Demon Eater on the 50-50. All right.
The Saris, though, might come down to put in a lot of work. This does mean, though, after the Thane comes down for Gengar, that Bottles will still have to top deck, because the Thane's going to outvalue the Saris here.
Saris is a great card, but Thane is also an insanely good card.
Oh, and a Demon Eater to go alongside of it.
It does make clearing kind of weird. You have to consider... Do you even bother considering Eater at this point? You have to, right? You have to kill the 2/2, and you have to kill the skeleton out of it so you don't die to Eater. Always
consider. Yeah. And taking the chance for the Bellinus to whiff. Didn't whiff this time. So Bottle's getting a little bit here. Bottle's getting a little bit.
Finally, right? Finally.
Yep. And this will set up the ward.
And I like that a lot. You just get a second Thane anyway, right? So, totally great here.
Pretty sure this is how we see Thane played most of the time now. It's just you play it, you get the value, and then you get this ward afterwards. It's really nice. It's just a really nice play. Plus, you get to deal the extra damage with the whites that are in play.
Eater drawn. That's pretty good. I mean, just like I said, it flip-flops so hard, so easily.
Now, the real question is, do you run the Saris in before you play Ektar to get a little bit more value?
I like that.
Looks like he's gonna clear board. Okay.
I love that, because now you have space for Eater and 2 zombies.
Yep. This works as well. Wants to keep that Saris in play. Makes the most sense in the world.
Saris at the moment is his win condition, so it makes a lot of sense.
Yep. And now, with the Ektar drawn, favor back to Bottles. This is one of the swingiest Shadow matches I've ever seen. This has actually just been...
Mid-range Shadow does this all the time. This is mid-range Shadow right now.
Not like this. Not like this. These turns have been crazy. Like, non-stop.
I promise you. This happens every time.
All right, this is Bottles' game to win now.
That's not quite good enough. This is such a hard turn now too, because you're at 5. There are 2 whites on the board, and you're at 5. You're gonna go to 7, right? And you kill one for free, but
Yep. So I'll have to take the damage from it. Yeah, this is the hard one. It's like, do you keep the white in play? I think you have to, right? I mean, it's the only way to stay alive. But there aren't
You
any
have to, yeah.
wards here, so actually, yeah, there's. This is just gonna put it right back to Gengar, and if he can't kill the white,
Yeah.
which he can't this turn, that means that the White King is gonna come down on defense, and it's gonna produce almost a guaranteed lethal. No, one away from.
oh,
lethal.
Death's Breath. Oh gosh, dude. This is such a swingy matchup. That series has got so much value. Oh my gosh.
This is a true slobber knocker.
What?
That's right. That's Aya's favorite word for long games, is slobber knocker. It's a slobber knocker.
I feel like Control Blood player would have a word for that.
Yeah.
Ooh. Wow. It's going face for 3. It's gonna try and outvalue the series, I guess. Yeah.
I think this is the
like
perfect
it.
play because this actually does set up a guaranteed lethal because the wards have to be traded into if there isn't any hard removal for the white, and that's just game.
And Bottles drew a Lyrial. Oh my gosh. 2 Lyrials drawn after your evolves are gone just feels so bad.
Oh no, he should have attacked the Belinus first. He does have a chance to kill that white.
That's true, yeah. That is true. I think he just realized that and he killed himself doing it. Oh no.
Oh,
But I think,
no.
wow, that was a match. That was a match right there. That was one of my favorite games I've seen so far. That was
That's
incredible.
every mid-sword match. Every mid-sword mirror ends up like that.
Mid shadow.
Shadow.
Mid shadow.
Yeah.
Mid shadow, yeah, that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. That's what I'm
Oh my gosh. Oh my god. I cannot.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to say that.
That's rough. That is really difficult. I think that got really complicated really fast. Man, I don't even know what to say when you get to that. All you can.
It's hard to cast those. They flip
Yeah.
flop. They're like a seesaw, right? They just do this over
Well,
and over. It's just like
In the beginning of the game, of course, we have to note that Gengar won 2 very important coin flips, which
He
kind of
did,
set him
yes.
ahead the entire time. But how strong Shadow is, Bottles was still in that game until the very last turn.
Mhm. The only thing
There's
that
good.
you wish for in those scenarios is Grimner. You always just wish for
Oh
Grimner.
my god.
Yeah, the card no one
Don't
plays
talk
anymore.
to me.
Yeah.
I play Grimnir in my mid shadow list because I'm not crazy. But
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I've seen too many games where Grimner just changes the scenario, but I believe we have Bottles on for an interview here after that heartbreaking defeat. Bottles, can you hear me, my friend?
Yeah, I can.
So sorry for the loss that you just took to Gengar there, but it was incredibly close. How do you feel right now? It must not be very great.
Not the best, certainly. I mean, I wish I could have played better because this match kind of decided a lot of the standings because we're in a 4-way tie right now for 3rd spot. But I believe mathematically there's still a chance. I haven't done the math yet because I'm a bit sad, but I think there's still a possibility where I get out of group. So I have to, stay focused because if there's a chance, then I have to take it. So
Yeah. I believe the highest possibility is if you win your next week match 2-0. I think it's probably the best way to do that.
Yeah.
But there still is, I think, a scenario where everybody can be tied 2-3 or something like that, in which case you would still be in the running, I think. But that Shadowcraft match aside, which was just insane, let's talk a little bit about you as a player. I mean, we've gotten to talk kind of briefly, but I've never gotten to ask you questions like how you got into Shadowverse or competitive card games, or like, where are you from? Who is Bottles?
Well, I'm from Vietnam, and I came here to study in the States. So currently working right now. It's not nothing too fantastic about that. I play a lot of card games in the past. I play Magic the Gathering, play Yu-Gi-Oh! I went to the Pro Tour Magic, and I didn't agree with some game decisions. I also play Hearthstone a little bit, but I found Shadowverse, and I'm a big anime fan. And I'm like, oh, it's kind of like Shadowverse, but the Evo mechanic is so much it's so cool. It's so anime-like. I'm like, oh yeah, let's just play this game. It's very free too, so I glad I tried it. And it has the style that I always play in card games, potentially known as Seraph. When I play card games, it's a lot of combo control style.
Sure.
Not so much D shift, as in like you win all in the combo. It's more about winning. You have most of the time you win through control game plan, but you have a combo as a side plan, and it's really that's like my favorite play style. So I'm glad Shadowverse had it, and I support that play style. And so I played it a lot. Certainly not in the round robins, just because everyone put a gun at that deck when they play versus me. So
yeah. Well, of course. I mean, I was a little upset and shocked that you didn't launch your Tier 0 deck today. Care to comment about that? How has the popularity, where has it gone? Is it not Tier 0 anymore? What happened?
I wish it was Tier 0. It takes some time.
Yeah, the meta needs to develop. It's gonna show up eventually. Yeah. So you're a competitive card gamer all around, and you've been doing really well in the Shadowverse Open. Talk to me about your preparation, and how did you even get to this point as kind of a card gamer? Like, what does Bottles do in terms of like a competitive player to prepare for these events, to put himself in the mindset? How are you so successful at what you do?
I wouldn't call it successful, but every time. So since losing to Vettu, I have not won a competitive match, and that was 3 weeks ago.
Oh no.
So it's been hurting. But the main reason why I like competitive card games is mostly, when I first got into Shadowverse, same with Magic, same with Hearthstone. When I first got in it, I accepted the fact that I was gonna lose a lot. Like, I'm gonna lose today, that's okay. I'm gonna lose tomorrow, that's okay. In 3 months' time, I might get my first win. That's progress, And I got a little bit faster start than most people because I have a card game background, so it plays somewhat to my advantage. But certainly you can't win them all and you can't lose them all, and that's how I approach a lot of card games. And I kept keep myself. You're gonna lose today. You're gonna lose tomorrow. Eventually, you find a win, and eventually you keep working. You get better and better at the game, and the practice shows. Obviously, not so much for me recently. What I do to prep is I play on ratings app against a lot of the Japanese players to mostly to fish out the meta and to find what I can play. And I got a little bit too greedy because I was prepping for the top 12 match, where when let's say top 6 match instead of like singularly prepping.
Right.
Because I'm like, if I get through this round robin and I flash out my gameplay of Seraph, I can most likely go the distance.
Yes.
Certainly didn't work out today. So.
Well, we'll see. Maybe you still have the chance, and that is a incredibly admirable way of looking at competition and growth and self-improvement. Certainly applicable to things beyond just Shadowverse and competitive card games in general. And of course, like we mentioned at the start of the interview, there maybe is a chance that you'll get into this top 6 still, even with a 2-3 scoreline. So really cool, really interesting to hear that. Anything that you would like to shout out to either CPV, who you've been in that team for a long time now, right? Or family, friends, or anything like that?
Well, shout out to my team mostly, and a lot of Shadowverse community, notably people who host tournaments. I appreciate them a lot. I host some tournaments and I've done some casting, and it's a lot of hard work. And the best thing you can repay them is join tournaments. That's like what everyone could do, because if you join tournaments, you give them the satisfaction of hosting a lot of tournaments, on top of giving them a vision to say, oh, they can keep doing this, cheering them up. And it's also free, so I don't quite understand why players are so afraid of that. Maybe they're afraid of losing, but they have to understand it's okay to lose. You have to understand that, and you can't win every game, just as you can't lose every game. So approach it with a humble perspective, and you probably will be successful somewhere in between. Maybe in the future, you're a fast learner and you got right away and win the championship. Who knows?
Well, Bottles, that was some amazing things to think about and to think through. Thank you so much for taking the time, especially after your loss, talking with me and kind of sharing that with all the viewers here. I really appreciate that, and good luck for week 5, and I hope to see you in the regional finals if you make it. That'd be awesome.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah, let's talk more some other time. But that was Bottles, and how else do you put it? That is some of the most inspirational stuff, and hopefully, he's been losing for a few weeks now, but as he said, you can't be scared of losing. You may lose now, you may lose tomorrow, next week, but season 4 and season 5, he's coming back.
Bottles is a true competitor. We've known him for a long time. He's always a good sport. He's always got a good mindset about things, and that's exactly what you need to do to be a good competitor. So, good on you, Bottles.
Yep. And super great about him throwing in the word for kind of helping build the community too. So glad we got to talk, and that's definitely a side of Bottles that we have not gotten to see yet. So very happy that we had this opportunity. But let's take a look at the standings and move on with the tournament here. Group A ends up in this fashion. Applicants 3-0, Red and Fantasy and Gengar all tied up 2-2. So that huge roadblock has just moved up one tier. And then we've got Lest at 1-2 and Bottles at 1-3. So, depending on how this next match goes between Applicants and Lest, this all could change quite dramatically once again. Will Applicants go to 4-0 or will he go 3-1? But let's take a look at Applicants versus Lest and the decks that they're holding here. Looks like we've got Shadow and Rune on the side of Applicants, and then Haven and Dragon on the side of Lest. Exo, give it to me. How is this looking?
I'll do it in a PG fashion. Mid Shadow and Burn Rune, just a great lineup. I mean, we've been seeing it, across the board today. Applicants just running meta decks today, and Lest has not been able to get away from Haven. That's not a good or a bad thing, but we've seen Lest bring a Haven every single week, I believe, without fail, and just tooting his deck one way or another. Tempo Haven can always be good in the fact that it gets a great draw. But I think that's always going to be the linchpin, and I say that a lot. Haven is always usually the linchpin in the matchup. If it performs well, it can win. If it doesn't draw well, it can just fall off. So I think Lest is at a slight disadvantage, but he's a great player, so I'm not going to put anything past him.
It's interesting that we mentioned Haven. I think one of the reasons is because Haven is currently, I feel like, one of the least consistent decks in terms of drawing into its power. Right. That's
right. Exactly the word. It's consistency. Its followers aren't as big as other followers. The game plans it has relies on amulets, and you might not get them on the appropriate turns for when you want them to pop. It can be super powerful, but it's not consistent at doing it.
Well, let's take a look at the list that Lest has brought here. And one of the cards that I want to talk about is what you've kind of pointed out, I think, yesterday, even in the European round robin. Wasn't a card that showed up, but one that you discussed is Dark John. And so looking at that effect, right, it's a hugely explosive effect, but Envy, how do you implement Dark John into your game plan? Where does it shine? Where does it fall flat on its face? Talk to me about it.
So I think in the beginning with Dark John, a lot of players were trying to use it defensively. If you remember back in when it first came out, we would play it like as an extra lion, the lion that would evolve and do 2 damage to board. But recently, if Haven's being played, if it's playing Dark John at all, it's being used aggressively. You're hitting your birds, the 2/1 bird and the 3/4 bird, and they're going caw, and you evolve the 2/1 over. It gets hit by Jun, and you go in really, really hard. You don't really care that you're buffing your opponent's board if you even leave one up, because you're hitting them for 6, you're hitting them for 5, you're hitting them if you evolved a tiger or something, you're hitting them really hard. And that's the point of Dark Jen. I think when she's played aggressively, she's used at her best.
So as we're looking through this list here, what do you think are the best case scenarios for this deck, Exo, that Lest is looking for?
Well, if you're on the play, you just want to Amulet Curve, right? You want to go Pinion Prayer into Beast Call Aria, into Divine Birdsong, into Birdkeeping Disciple. If you're on the draw, you want to get your follower 2 drops and possibly your follower 3 drop. He doesn't really have that many. He's only playing 2 White Tiger. But best case scenario is keep your board as full as possible for a possible Dark John, Taurus for an endgame if you need it, Moonall Mirage and Winged Sentinel Garuda for an endgame if you need it. But it's really just about good on-curve plays. If you don't get good on-curve plays, it's really hard to come back into the endgame because of the amulets. You can't use them immediately. So it's very draw dependent on the early game.
We'll see if it works out. It does seem like there's a lot of getting the ideal scenario for you. In many ways, I think it's a less dramatically, outwardly dramatic Atomy deck. I feel like.
Yeah.
Sort of, actually, yeah.
Kind of.
Well, honestly, Staircase I think makes that a very tough comparison because I think Staircase is just so good for Atomy.
It's different, but Atomy, right? You need to have Atomy in your hand. You need to have 1, 2, 3, drops or something like that to explode with Atomy. If you don't get that same sort of arrangement with Haven, it can feel the same. Like if you don't explode, you're just kind of sitting there. The only difference is Atomy can fall back on Deathly Tyrant, and Haven doesn't have something like that.
Well, hey, for that Shadowverse next stuff, let's make a shadow effect for Haven, where you can convert that shadow into light, and then you can play a card that consumes all your whatevers, and it just, I don't know where I'm going with this.
Rainy. This is way too complex for my overflow dragon.
We're just chalkboarding, okay? We're just chalkboarding ideas right now. So it looks like the first matchup is going to be Rune into Haven, and let's see if Les can draw into his curve.
That's what it is. So Envy, talk to me. Maybe you have some more insight about Tempo Haven than I do. Is there anything outside of just getting that nice tempo draw that you can really succeed with Tempo Haven?
I don't have any more experience playing Haven than anybody, actually. I think you actually even were the one that was running the you were playing the Cleric Lancer Aether of the White Wing list, right? Weren't you?
Yeah, I was. The way I play Tempo, again, I've talked about it at length. I am not a fan of amulets in this game. Beast Call Aria is about the only one, as far as as far as Haven's concerned anyway, because I don't like drawing amulets in the late game. I just don't like doing it. I mean, you might have to sacrifice Garuda or something like that, but I think Aether of the White Wing is just a stronger card overall anyway. Ending with Tauruses, putting Cleric Lancers into play, even Tenko, you know what I mean? If you're playing Alanas, if you're a crazy person. Or a really smart person, depending on how you view it. But it's just, I don't know. The amulets to me are just like, they're such a topsy-turvy type of idea in a deck. It's like they're amazing when you have them on curve, and then late in the game when it's your top deck, you can't do anything with it unless it's like, turn 10 and you have a Garuda in your hand or something like that. But if you're on turn 10 with your tempo deck, you're probably behind anyway.
Well, I mean, that's just like the natural. Being behind anyway is kind of like the natural drawback of playing something that does nothing to the board, that tries to count down. Like Tribunal does something to the board, kinda. Tarnished Grail kind of does something to the board, but not really. They don't really impact the board as much as a follower does, because a follower can evolve, can do other impactful things. That's kind of the point of amulets in the first place, because no one's playing Eidolon. We're not playing Eidolon to pop these immediately. It's just not worth it, right?
Right. I mean, you can't play if you use an Evolution Orb on an Eidolon in your tempo deck. I will praise you if you win, especially if you do it on camera, but I would not suggest it.
Right. It's not the best plan. I mean, we already see Les doing kind of what you said might happen to him. He's not exactly drawing the best hand. He's not exactly, been able to play this White Tiger, which is good against Rune, great against Rune, actually. And his hand's kind of weird, like unless he top decks literally March Year's Tea Time next turn, this is looking pretty bad.
Yeah, and the reason that is just because of the quality of cards, right? So the difference is Rune can play cards like Dance of Death because it has ways to cheat it with Wizardess of Oz, right? When you're playing Haven, it's just a solid card that you can play on curve if you want to, or it can push through a blocker if you want to. It's still a solid option. It just doesn't have the same efficiency that Rune does in the mid-game to late game. So you're doing a lot more fair things, whereas Rune is doing a lot more unfair things.
Right, exactly. And I mean, we've used that the terminology on, I don't know if we've used it on cast before, describing a deck as fair, but basically, Dance of Death in Haven is always 5 play points, right? I will always have to pay 5 play points to cast Dance of Death. But in Rune, sometimes I pay 1. That's just comparatively very unfair, right?
And fair
when you
versus
compare those
unfair
two.
doesn't necessarily mean it's bad design or bad
Oh
flaw
yeah, no,
or
not at
anything
all.
like
It
that.
doesn't mean that
Yeah,
it doesn't
just
mean that it's
unfair.
overpowered or bad or anything. It just means that compared to what the other faction could be doing right now versus what you have as an option, it ends up the disparity in matchup. That's how we get matchups, basically.
Right, exactly. But I would never count Lest out. I mean, he has been playing Haven, like I said, week in and week out. He obviously feels very comfortable with it, and he knows how to win with it. I can't put that past him. So I don't think that he's completely dead to rights yet. The only thing in contention with that thought is that Applicants' hand is really good.
His hand is great, and then also you said a really important word there. I think with which might explain why Les plays Haven so often, and it was the word comfortable. We talk about this literally. I feel like every hour or so when we're talking about North America, but I mean, comfort picks probably describes America. Like,
right?
They like their pillow picks,
comfort food, comfort picks. Big comfy couches, big comfy beds. That's what America does.
Yeah, dude. Change is not good in America, right?
All right, so it looks like Lest is just putting down the hammer, says you have to get past my White Tiger if you want to do anything. And this is right before Master Mage Levi can come out.
And that is a really good play against Rune. Even if Piercing Rune, was playable on the Tiger, it wouldn't be great, though. So if Halo Golem, for instance, could shoot that Tiger and then evolve into the bird, right? You could get 4-face with Levi, but you can't do that. So...
Can't do that. In this scenario, you have to either Evo over the Tiger or just jam your Levi into it.
Which I think is gonna happen. Yeah, you're gonna jam 2 followers into 2 followers, which, lets Haven come back a little bit. That kind of puts them back on the even footing right there.
That's right. West is basically asserted dominance and said, you have to play reactive to me, and it forced Applicants to do so. And he has the Garuda to pop the amulet here.
Yeah, I mean, gonna take 3. You're leaving up 2 4/4s if you don't evolve the... Yeah, this is just game, right?
Well, there is Master Mage Levi coming out next turn, right?
He doesn't do anything,
but that does leave the 2/2. He will have to evolve the Master Mage Levi to stay alive.
He can't stay alive. It leaves 2 4/4s and a 2/2.
Oh, right. Yeah, they all have 4 defense. Never mind.
Master Mage Levi looks terrible against this board.
Yeah, everything that I just said, forget about it. I thought he was able to wipe the board, but he can't even do that. So even without a perfect draw, as we saw, as long as you have ways to pop your amulets on command, which Garuda can do, you still have ways to take over the mid game. And honestly, just simple plays like I call them simple because we see them, but it's not so simple, right? Like, which follower do you evolve? Like, do I evolve my bird last turn or do I not evolve something? Things like that. Very important in a tempo deck to understand when to use your evolution orbs, and Les perfectly knows.
It was a great setup. It made sure that, no matter what Applicants did that turn, even unless he had literally Oz into Bolt, but Bolt would still leave, if he didn't evolve it, would still leave Dance of Death into 3, or Dance of Death into 1 rat even attacking, and would be lethal also. So, like, there's not really anything you could have done with that board setup.
I think this goes a long way to show Les understanding the matchups because of his inclusion of cards like Menu and White Tiger specifically, and those are very good against Rune, like you were saying. I mean, you can't Piercing Rune, Dance of Death, anything these White Tigers. You have to do something outside the norm for Rune in order to get through these cards. And it just sets up a mid-game where you can just push ahead, and Les just, perfectly did it. That was a great game.
It's a pretty bad draw, too. But, I mean, White Tiger, I think the White Tiger turn, honestly, shifted that pretty far. The turn where a 5/6 on the board behind a White Tiger is just so much... It's so hard for Rune to answer that. Because they do depend on... they do depend on Halo Golem, they depend on Levi, like, they depend on Piercing Rune, Dance of Death, hitting these followers, and when it can't, it puts them in such a weird spot,
Yep, absolutely. And now we get to see, since that Haven deck just won outright, now it's Dragon versus Shadow and Dragon versus Rune, and I'm pretty sure we've seen Dragon win more often than not against either of these decks, let alone having a chance against both.
This is a classic matchup. I feel like I've seen this matchup probably a lot.
Yep, and this is
match
actually
so
way
awful.
back. This isn't anything crazy. This is just Saha Ramp Dragon. The only modifier to this matchup is both players are running Staircase to Paradise. Just good value cards. Can't get away from them sometimes. What do you think about the Soul Conversion versus Staircase to Paradise and Shadow type of argument? Like, what would you prefer to play?
I think that the one extra shadow from casting Soul Conversion on a follower is probably a moot point if you're not running something like Tyrant, and I think Staircase overall is probably just better. So
yeah, what I've been trying is like a tech type of thing in my Shadow list is choose Staircase. I don't like running 3. I'm weirdy. I don't like running 3 because I don't like drawing them later in the game. I only like having them in my opening hand or as an option in the mid game. And I like running 1 Soul Conversion because you still need that effect, right? Like, it still opens up some of the best plays you have with Feigns or clearing out your own board space or Lurching Corpse, whatever. And it might be right just to keep Soul Conversions in, but I think Staircase is too powerful not to play some copies of, especially in Shadow, because it just does so good at filling up the board, and it doesn't really care if you kill its followers.
right, but I mean, I was gonna say that like that's awkward in itself, right? Because Staircase takes up a spot that might banish a skeleton early on from Bone Chimera. It makes Prince Catacombs not as good, but I mean, it does kind of it helps your overall card quality, I think, over the game's course, which I think is better. So.
Yeah, just how late do you expect your games to go? If you think super late, then Staircase is really good. If you don't think super late, Soul Conversion is probably just a straight up better card.
Mm-hmm. Not to mention, in the mirror, you would just destroy. If you're playing against a mid-range Shadow mirror and they're not playing Staircase and you are, then you win, probably. So.
Probably. You have a lot more chances to get your Ektars and Thanes online, absolutely.
It was an interesting play from Les, choosing to actually, I think, because Sybil didn't do any. No, he could have evolved Sybil into Ceres, and I think it would have been fine. But it wouldn't have. He could have been Soul Squashered, I guess, was the play he was worried about.
Yeah, I think he's actually playing a more tempered plan here, even though I don't know how many turns he can to afford it.
Yeah, he's getting hit pretty hard. Double Sybil's pretty good though.
Okay, yeah, the second Sybil makes this turn way easier. Next turn you can do it again, ramp right up to 10.
This is gonna be great for him when he realizes there wasn't even a Soul Squasher to answer that. I was like,
right.
I was talking about while I was watching the game, and he's not gonna kill Ceres. Wow, he's gonna ignore it. Interesting.
Yeah, cares about the damage more than anything else. Can't hate on that, but of course Staircase popping, and my goodness, all the options, and another Staircase popping the following turn. I think Applicants is in a great spot here. I say that until Staircase pops for less and we see like triple Bahamut, but we'll see.
Yeah, I mean, we have to remember that Les is playing a very late game oriented deck that if he can get that last evolve out of Applicants is going to have like no way to answer anything, so.
It's true. That is true, and another Sybil next turn just means that pretty much any aggression this turn is going to be eaten away as well, because this Sybil has to be traded into, so he'll go back up to 17. Yeah, I think Les is in a just fine spot. This is going to come down to who can use their resources better, and you can already see Applicus shaking his head even after drawing with Staircase.
Mm-hmm. There was once a time where I feel like Mid Shadow used to be able to outgrind Dragon, maybe, but that kind of shifted back in Dragon's favor. So.
One of the reasons why I actually thought it shifted back into Dragon's favor was because it has this new crazy combo with Ariad or Erd with, Queen of the Dread Sea and Genesis Dragon. But most of the players are just going way back to the Saha Quill, just like, honest. I say honest, but it ramps. Ramp Dragon, which is like a lot of life gain, a lot of big followers, and things like that. But yeah, it's interesting to watch the progression week to week with specifically Dragon. Shadow, goes up and down a little bit with a few cards, but it relatively stays the same. But Dragon has huge shifts.
Very interesting that Les chose to evolve that when Soul Squasher could be. It's very not impactful at all, and Soul Squasher could come down very easily. But
Especially
yeah, like going back to what you said, double Staircase, right? Going back to what you just said, I think less honest, more predictable. I think Saha lists are far more predictable than the other dragons, because you kind of have to like wonder, like, are they holding this combo? Do I have to play around, X amount of damage? Like, they just evolved a Forte at my face. Is it possible they're holding, Gen Dragon combo or something? So a lot less predictable in that sense.
Well, less predictable, and it can just win faster, right? Like, I mean, if you're playing the Ariad combo, 18 damage on, turn 6, turn 7 is very realistic. We've seen it on camera. And And that's a scary beast to try to beat, especially when you're just trying to play this long, drawn-out value game.
Right, that's a card where Death's Breath comes back into play. You know, Death's Breath, popping your own Thanes, getting the ward off that guy. Death's Breath, a card that is usually not that great against Dragon. Like 2/3 wards are not that great. But against that, it's very paramount for sure.
Right. Usually against Dragon, the Death's Breaths are just played as, 3/2/2s. You don't even want to use your shadows on them because, Grimnir is a possibility, Bahamut's a possibility, all these things that can wipe your board, Israfil, of course. So you just want them to build up your shadows and present a board that your opponent has to answer just to keep the game flowing.
I think Lest is highly surprised that Applicants does not seem to have Soul Squasher.
Yeah, this is a feels bad Ektar. I like it. Is he gonna trade or is he gonna face?
Always face. Can't even finish the summon animation, and Soul Squasher drawn immediately for Applicants.
Oh no.
That is very feels bad, man. Right after he wanted it.
Yep. Okay, and he uses up the shadows on the Death's Breath. I feel like he's gonna get slightly punished for this with the Bahamut, but it's still good because at least the Zeus can't hit face now.
You have double breath. Do you bother Bahamuting this?
Yeah, I would.
Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay.
I like Bahamuting before board clearing. It's just my style, because especially your opponent's at 13. If they actually just can't kill this or they can't put up a defense, they just lose. So
that is very, very true. You're also playing. You have double breath, right? So very easy to get rid of that.
Also overlooked that we didn't even talk about is Dragon has been veering away from Grimnir as well. I still think that's wrong. I don't know why. I don't know why Grimnir is not in the meta anymore, especially in tournament play, because we've seen so many games go to turn 10 plus because people are just trying to grind each other out. Grimnir is one of the best grindy cards in the game, and we just don't see it anymore. Or at least not as much as we used to.
I don't know. I feel like it matters in these shadow mirrors, but I feel like if you're expecting a lot of Dirt Rune, he doesn't really impact Dirt Rune matchups very much at all. So
it does give you that one extra option of being able to ward on turn 3, though, against like a Magic Illusionist opener or something like that. I don't know. I like the card a lot. Maybe that's just me.
Maybe there's a little bit of confirmation bias with you and Grimnir, and you guys should work that out before. Maybe. Double breath is not looking too great after a double bone chimera happens. So
let's see. The unfortunate part is that you can't play the unenhanced version first, because if he could, I think he'd be in fine shape.
Right.
This will still work. Well, no, that still won't work. It will. This is actually a game, I think, right? He gets to pop the Chimera, pop the breath, pop the other breath, and then attack face. Yeah, this works.
Right. Because he does kill. Yeah, he Breath of Elementals 1/1/1.
Yep. And Les will take that one very convincingly. Very convincingly.
Les takes the win 2-0, and 2-0 wins are actually pretty important in the round robin. Now, we were talking about Les as a player over the course of this season, and obviously kind of a focus point because he's been prominent in Season 1, prominent in Season 2, right? And in Season 3, having trouble, right? His score line hasn't been the top. He's on the bottom end of the round robin. But it's games like those that really kind of make you think, like, where is Les standing right now? Is he trying out a whole bunch of different decks? He's brought Haven time and time again. Obviously worked out for him in this particular match, but we also considered it still has its high roll options, right? Is this something that Les is just investigating right now? What is his eventual game plan is what I'm wondering here, but fantastic set of plays for him in this particular round.
I mean, if today was any indication of where Les is at, I mean, he just took out the only undefeated player in his group, right? So he hasn't lost his touch. I think he just had a long time finding his footing this season.
And certainly Les is one of the players that is most eager to play something just a little off meta, right? Enough off to make you think. So let's take a look at the standings and get that formal update on what's going on here. That's going to make the groups very, very different. 3-1 for Applicants means that there's a possibility for a 3-2 tie between Red and Fantasy, Gengar, and Les. Oh, well, not all of them. One of them will have to be 2-3. But there is a world where everybody can be in that 3-2 score line. And then Bottle's down there at 1-3. And I think that loss, the fact that Applicants lost, has made it actually tougher for Bottles. Because I think now there's just one more win distributed into that lower end of the group. That means that it's more likely for the matchups to be 3-2. We got to do the math at some point. I think after this broadcast, I'm going to sit down and
well, I mean, there's just another
out,
person in general in the running, so it's going to make it harder for him anyway. So
Yep. So we'll see how that breaks down. But if you guys want live updates on the standings and information about broadcast schedule and when the regional finals is going to happen, also player profiles, you can find them on the website shadowverse.nge.io. Go there, and there are also articles about competitive Shadowverse gameplay, things talking about the meta, how to build your decks, how to look at what your opponent is running, stuff like that. Just a lot of really cool information about playing Shadowverse competitively. So check out the website for that. And that will actually wrap up Group A. So we are done with Week 4 in terms of Group A. We still have Group B to look at, but we're only going to get to that after we take a break. We're going to drink some tea today. Yesterday we had coffee. Today is tea. And we'll have some biscuits, I think. For the EU broadcast, we had some American snacks. For the NA broadcast, we have some European snacks. So I think that's what's going to happen. When we come back, Group B will be underway, and we'll see who turns out on top of that. Is Jay-Z going to remain undefeated? Find out in a bit. All right, we are back. Took a break, had some nice nap. I slept for about 2 minutes, woke up, and then walked around the building, and then came back right here. Now we're ready for Group B of the North American round robin, ready to go. I need to think of more things to do in the break.
I think you should do some jumping jacks, maybe some exercise. You know, you're looking a little scrawny these days, Rainey.
Yeah. Hey.
He said he walked around the whole building. Is that not exercise?
I don't believe that though. I think he's joshing us with that one.
Yeah, I just slept for 4 minutes.
Maybe.
Yeah, that sounds more like Rainey.
Let's take a look at the format to see how these players are moving through the season. Remember that the regional finals are going to happen the last 2 weeks of the season. So we're on week 4 of the Invitational. That means next week is the last week of the Invitational. The week after that is regional finals. And so that's going to go on for 2 weeks. And that's where the top players from North America are going to compete to find out who the grand champion is going to be. And the top players from Europe are going to do the same for the European region. $6,500 on the line, playing some Shadowverse, being real competitive. So I'm looking forward to it. I hope everybody else is as well. Let's look at the schedule to see what matches we have up for Group B. Piao versus Vettu is going to kick things off for this half. And then Care Package versus Hectorox. And then JZ versus Underwear is going to be the last match. So, interesting things to note. Piao, of course, had to take a DQ last week. And it was in a very important match, right? It was Piao versus JZ, who in my mind are the two kind of most interesting, at least to me personally, players in the group. I really wanted to see how their match would have played out, but now we may never know. But we'll see how Piao does today right here. Let's take a look at the head-to-head and see what they've chosen for their opponents here. Shadowcraft is going to be banned on the side of Piao, and he's going to be using Rune and Forest, while Vettu is going to be fielding Forest and Haven. Haven showing up again here. Exo, we know that Piao likes to play PTP Forest. Is he bringing PTP Forest today?
Unfortunately, he's not. Today he's bringing just I wouldn't say run-of-the-mill OTK Roach. He's got his flavor to it, that kind of thing. But I think the bans are very appropriate. Mid Shadow was the only non-combo deck that Piao was bringing today, so I think it's appropriate because V2, of course, is bringing triple aggro lineup. I think the ban on the other side, a little bit off, though. V2 had his Blood deck banned instead of his Forest deck banned. I think Forest is slightly better, especially against the combo decks. It's just a lot harder because they can fill up the board a lot faster. But Blood can do it too, just I don't think as consistently. But I think that V2 has a strong, favorable matchup here. He's got 2 aggro decks leaning into 2 combo decks. I think he's on point to win this one.
Right, and that'll be a big win for V2 because he's been having a rough time. Also one of the representatives to go to the World Grand Prix, so he's going to be representing North America, and he's been having a hard time keeping up with the pace of the Starforged Legends season. We'll see if he can kind of take a win for himself and start ramping up his momentum. Let's look at V2's Forestcraft deck. Now, one of the cards that I want to talk about in this list is Elf Girl Liza, a card that is, included pretty commonly, I feel like, in Forestcraft lists. Envy, what is the benefit of this particular card? I know as new players coming into the game, they might not really respect this effect as much as they maybe should. Talk to me about how it's used effectively and how it can really change matchups.
Well, once upon a time, this card dominated the game. Back when mid-range Forest was really good, but basically 2 play point 2/2, and when she comes on the board, she has a fanfare to put sort of like a little spell barrier, effect barrier on your followers, and she prevents them from taking damage from spells and effects, right? So things like Hungering Horde, which do 3 to all your fairies, don't do that anymore. Things like Angelic Barrage, which no one plays, but they could do 1 to all of your fairies, don't do that anymore. The Fire Chain, which no one plays anymore, could wipe your entire board, but can't do that anymore. And those are the more powerful ways they could wipe your board, but with Liza on the board, they can't. She puts that little spell barrier there. She protects them from taking damage, and she's actually really important in a lot of matchups. Any matchup that relies on spell damage, effect damage, like Dirt Rune, or just Rune in general, is going to get blown out by Liza.
I actually really think that Liza is a very important inclusion now in these Forestcraft lists, and I think partially that's because that Elf Song exists. I think the combination of Elf Song plus Liza just puts a lot of numbers on the board that you have to fight in kind of a Beauty and the Beast-esque fashion for that one turn, which is really tough in my mind. What do you think, Exo?
I think it's right along those same lines. Liza prevents huge tempo swings, whether you're playing against Blood, you know, and they have like a Diabolic Drain, or you're playing against Dragon and they have Breath of the Salamander. I mean, it sets up a turn where you can just forcefully push damage on your next turn as well, because your followers are harder to deal with. And what's funny about aggro Forest, and it's kind of like this double-edged blade against specifically D-Shift, because all of the followers, or not all of them, but most of the followers have one defense before things like Elf Song come out, right? So Angelic Snipes, Magic Missiles, Wind Blast, all those things can easily effectively kill these things. But Eliza on a singular turn where you have an entirely full board, D-Shift isn't really going to have an answer to that, right? They can play one follower if it's an Evo turn, and then Evo to kill one of them, but then the full board's left over. And then we're talking about Blessed Fairy Dancers, bounces, tons of damage, things like that. So if you don't get Liza, and if you don't get followers that have more than one defense, it can be rough. But if you get those things, I feel like it's an easy win.
Envy, yay or nay to this Forest Craft list?
I think this Forest Craft has been popular for a while. It's strong. I think it's been proven to be, you know, one of the better ways to play Forest right now, outside of maybe neutral. And doesn't exactly have the pitfalls that neutral does. So I like it a lot.
And actually, I kind of wanted to get into, because I said that he wasn't playing a de facto OTK Roach deck. Let's actually see what his differences are, because Piao named this deck 70% win rate Piao Forest. This is his deck. He identifies with this deck. And
he's working on that secret website. He's gonna take down Mana Search. He's gonna 70% Piao deck lists.
Yeah, he's running only 2 Ancient Elves, and in place of the third one, he's running a Starry Elf to fetch Amulets. So that's an interesting include. He is playing. Oh no, never mind. The third Ancient Elf is in there. It's just a different version of it. He's playing a Starry Elf though. He is playing the Lilacs, which we've seen in and out of Forest decks a lot. He's only playing 2 Goblin Mages. And he's playing 3 Cassiopeias and 3 Crystalia Arons, so a really heavy top end as well.
It's an interesting list for sure. It definitely is. And like EPM, the Elven Princess Mage.
Elvis is back,
combo.
everybody. Let's go.
Yeah, Elvis has been here the whole time. The Elven Princess Mage Tina combo, or Fina, sorry, rather, we haven't seen in a long time. You know, 4 play points, put 2 0 cost fairies in your hand, followed by, you know, 5 play point Fina to put a 0 cost Goblin Mage in your hand, sets up for a very explosive Roach turn. And that has just been like out of the meta for a long time. So
this is funny too. Like, this is probably the best hand, and you're on the draw. This is one of those decks where if you're on the draw, you feel amazing, because you can Elven Princess Mage into Fina and still have an Evo point left for the Roach combo on the 7th turn, which is exactly when you can go off. So I think Piao has about the best of it. He has pretty much everything he needs. He has a stall turn in Cassiopeia if he wants to use that on turn 6. Just perfect stuff right now.
I think we all know he's going to go for that perfect play, the Elven Princess Mage. He's going to evolve that. He's holding out. He's going to Nature's Guidance Lilac instead.
Wow.
What in the world is Piao doing?
He's being very respectful of V2's ability to deal damage here, I believe.
Well, I
This
mean,
is
Elven
not a
Princess
play
Mage
I
would have
would
killed
have
that
gone
menu
for.
also.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. It
Don't
could also
actually-
be possibly an overdraw thing, because if you play Elven Princess Mage, you go up to 9 cards. You would have to
You
play
go to
one of the
8.
0 costers.
No, you'd go up to 8.
Oh, right. Nature's Guidance drew him an extra card there. That's right. Well,
Right.
it replaced itself.
He was at 7 to go to 6 to go to 8. So
Maybe I counted wrong. But in either
that
case,
whole
I
turn
feel
was
like
very weird.
yeah, very weird. Ooh, okay. Doesn't respect Piao's damage though. V2's like, you know what? You can hit me for 3. I don't care.
Well, I mean, Piao's got to crash both these in now because he can't let that hit him in the face. So
That's true. That's true, but they both survive. So I think Piao is in a nice position here. Of course, we are going to see a Garuda into, or from a Marcher's Tea Time, which we haven't actually gotten to see very much at all this season.
we talk about that play a lot too. It's a very important play. Can also go double
And the
black inscripture
stats.
into menu. It's possible.
That is a play as well. Hmm. I think Garuda kind of tempos up a little bit better, especially for finishing off with Taurus.
It does.
The cool thing about these Finas and the T times in this matchup is that 6 defense is actually very relevant, because I don't think any followers in the deck before like turn 8 can even deal with 6 defense followers, unless we're talking about Cassiopeia or something, right? Like just honest like Evos into it are very hard.
It is definitely very awkward. 3 damage on board, 0 play point, Goblin Mage with 1 Roach in hand and a Nature's, or double Nature's even, but there's no 0-cost fairies to buff anything.
Nope. And because Piao decided to do this more defensive game plan, he kind of took the combo approach away from his style, and I think that's going to come back to bite him here. He's already at 6. We already know there's a Garuda and a Taurus in hand, so Piao has to win over the course of the next 2 turns. I don't think he can.
Well, 6 damage plus Goblin Mage, Roach, Nature's Roach Evolve is not lethal.
He still has
so...
an Evo. He still hasn't evolved. That's true. It is true. And actually, you're right. You're right. This might be too scary for V2 to actually play the Garuda here, and he's got nothing to pop with it, so he's not getting any advantage from it.
I'm sure he'd feel much safer if he could Garuda Black and Scripture, but he can't, obviously.
Can't do that. So yeah,
he's
maybe
got to
this
set
is
up
just
for
a
lethal
script.
next turn, though. No, he literally has to set up for lethal. He can't pass that up, I don't think.
Yeah, it's a rough spot. So let's actually count. So we've got 6 damage in play. We play the 0-cost Goblin Mage. We have 2 board spots to work with and 7 play points. So we can actually just full Roach combo with 1 spell, which means 12 damage from hand with 6 in play. We're looking at 18 plus Evo. Yeah, we're looking at plenty of damage next turn.
It's quite a bit. Goes for the Garuda, sets it up. I think Double Scripture felt safer, but you have to try to win, I think, when you're in this kind of spot, right?
In this type of matchup, absolutely. And you're also thinking, they have 1 0-cost card in their hand. They might only have access to 1 Roach, but of course we know that's not the case.
And there it is. 6 plus 9 plus 2.
So forget everything I was talking about with Piao going for combo. He knows how to play against aggro. I think Piao might be the best Force player in NA right now. He brings it every single week in different fashions, and he always performs with it.
I really want him to explain that Lilac play. I really do.
Yeah. That would be a great question to ask him after
it looked
the tournament.
It looked very, very weird. Because like the Natures, if you're going for the Natures draw, right? Like what are you looking for? You set up a better board if you don't do that. I don't know. It was a very weird play, but it worked out for him. I mean, it obviously works.
Yeah. Yep. And he still was able to capitalize on a turn 7 win there. And I think it was mostly due to the fact that Lilacs have such a high defense that if they can stick and play, if any of your followers can stick and play in Force, they turn lethal combo setups up, just like we just saw. Normally with Force matchups, we see them having nothing in play and going into their combo turns because all their followers are super small. So maybe Piao just knows, he's like, if I can stick a few of my followers here, I'll be in good shape. And that's exactly how it played out.
For sure. We see V2 trying again with his Storm Haven, but Piao's playing Fate's Hand. Did you notice that? Fate's Hand in his deck? And Chimera. This is interesting.
Well, I believe. Wait a minute. Hold on. Hold the phone for a second.
Wait a minute.
Piao. Okay, yeah. Piao was playing D-Shift. Okay, yeah. Yeah, this is a regular D-Shift deck, right?
With Telescope in it.
We saw it. I don't know if you saw last week's Piao game with Telescope. He turned an unwinnable D-Shift game into one of the best D-Shift wins I've ever seen. Like, that game was incredible, and it was because he had Telescopes in his deck.
As a D-Shift player, I find that hard to believe, but I also acknowledge the fact that D-Shift can probably do whatever it wants and get away with it. So,
It was just the simple fact that he rode insights into telescopes to then draw into the cards that he needed in the end of the game, while also being able to spell boost. So he didn't have to use up a bunch of his play points in order to secure the win at the end. It was really fun to watch. That's one everyone should go back and watch. If you want to learn how to play D-Shift and you're thinking about playing telescopes, that's the game.
I don't think anybody's thinking about telescopes, but now why should they think about telescopes, Exo?
You know why? Just because. You know, that's
yeah, that's
why.
a good
watch
reason.
watch
reason.
the game last week, and that's all I'll say about it. But we're in the same situation we've seen before against Rune, where these Haven players are bringing things like White Tigers and Menus, and they are just so difficult to deal with.
But again, I do want to add this, that while yes, they are good, we keep seeing these situations in NGE where they don't actually matter because there's not any removal anyway that he could have casted. He's on 4 now on his first removal turn, so.
Yeah, this is I don't think you can come back from this one.
But I think this is kind of like why V2, chose not to ban this. Like, he knew his Haven would beat this, right? He's playing cards that go against this, and he's got another list that's good against it too. So I think he expected this to happen. That's why we were taken aback so much. We were like, wait, D-Shift made it through? I assumed this was Dirt Rune, right? But I think this is
I actually highly agreed. I highly agreed with the bans because Piao brought a lineup where you can actually break a hole into it. He brought an OTK Roach combo deck, a D-Shift combo deck, and mid shadow. And V2 brought all aggro. So if you ban out the mid shadow, then you just have a field day against 2 combo decks. And I think that was a good spot to be.
Mm-hmm. And then it's kind of odd to bring like one list that doesn't fit the rest of your lineup, but. It happens.
It does happen. It's just it's important to note because if you do something like that, and that's to say V2 could have had like a mid-range of control and all this other stuff, and it might not have mattered. But because he specifically brought an all aggro lineup, there is a hole in Piao's lineup. So just things you have to consider when you're bringing 3 decks to a format. Where are the holes, and what could happen if this happens? You know what I mean? Just think about all your scenarios. And I think Piao's feeling it right now.
I think he's highly considering what number of Golem Assaults do I toss back here. It's not more than 1. There's no way it's more than 1.
Right. You keep one of them. Maybe he's considering throwing back the D-Shift?
Oh. Ooh, throwing back the D-Shift. Okay.
It's like, I need early answers to fairies. I think that's his mindset.
Probably looking for, if I had to guess, maybe Angelic Snipe or Kaleidoscopic Glow, maybe?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Glow's Snipes, Magic Missiles.
Yeah. Double Owls, very unfortunate. Ugh.
Yeah. I think this is just Owl Pass. Yeah.
Owl Pass feels so bad.
Yeah, especially in D-Shift. Not doing anything you'd like to do. And of course V2 draws a Wood of Brambles. Why wouldn't he?
Well, from his point of view, Wood of Brambles it's his best play. We know that. But it doesn't look that great, because what if it gets glowed? It could just get Kaleidoscopic glowed. And then, if I don't trade, this thing dies for free, and then where am I at next turn?
That's true. I mean, I would probably trade here, even being the aggro player, just to get the advantage. And essentially to give away, a target for Magic Missile or something like that. But you can assume he doesn't have Magic Missile because he didn't cast it on turn 2. So I like this. I like attacking.
Oh my gosh. I love the expressions that Piao is making while he continuously bricks. He is drawing not only non-boostable cards, but he's not drawing removal either. Concentration into double concentration is very bad. Very, very, very bad.
Yeah, concentration, of course, is the replacement, I think, the more de facto replacement for Sorcery Cash in the deck now. And Sorcerer Cash in the spot wouldn't be very good either. I mean, it might help that Chimera come out a little bit sooner, but Chimera against, Aggro Force isn't the best card.
Right. I mean, Sorcery Cash is just, now that you mention it, just to explain, people may not know why we don't play that card anymore, when it seemed like such a staple, is that with Magic Owl and Concentration in the deck now, it just too slow. Way too slow. It doesn't actually help you do anything. Concentration has flexibility in the sense that it can draw you 3 cards off an sigil while also healing you for 1. And then Magic Owl just takes care of all the boosting you care about anyway. So Sorcery Cash is just kind of a card that we cut for that reason.
And V2 is seemingly teched for D-Shift, right? And he's running a Haven deck that has Menus and White Tigers. He's running a Forest deck with 3 Lises in it. Just very hard to deal with turns.
And we see Piao go for what I just mentioned. He drew 3 cards with that concentration. Didn't even, his hand's not even full. That's kind of weird for a D shift deck to not even have a full hand. But I think he's kind of paying for tossing back that D shift now. Like when you toss back D shift, you kind of tell your deck you're gonna pay for it. You're like, I don't want to see this ever
Right.
again. Just don't give me D shift ever again. It's fine.
That's right. And your deck's like, really? All right, bro.
The hunt has only
You want me? I'm not coming.
So sparkly.
It's only taking 7. Only taking 7 on turn 4. It's not that big a deal,
Just
right?
a light. Yeah. Plus, we see Roach with a Fairy Circle in hand and an Airbound Barrage for a bounce. If Piao doesn't get rid of this Liza, I can easily see Liza being picked up with Airbound Barrage if there's a target for it. Because I'm assuming that the Owl's going to come out this turn, or at least a ward from Golem Assault. But another Liza on the back of a full board would just be backbreaking for Piao as well. So I think Piao is just up against it. He knows it. He feels it. We can see it. This is rough.
This is definitely a very rough. RUFF. Rough.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, that Blessed Fairy Dancer is scary as crap too, right? I mean, you replay that a couple times, it's game over
Ooh.
too.
On me.
Missile into D shift though, pretty nice. Can't remove anything else now though.
Ready for the good stuff?
We go
It was
for
a
the
fairly
Liza, he
lucky
will not.
magic missile.
Yes. Finally, a D shift to pop with Owl, essentially, down for a couple more spell boosts. Another Liza drawn anyway.
Just go May into Liza, evolve something here. This looks really good for V2.
Yeah. Yeah, with a Roach backup plan on the following turn. Of course, Fairy Circle being one of the best enablers because it gives you 3 spells off of just itself.
I won't let you get
Right,
away.
and this is going to be what we talked about in the beginning of the game. It doesn't even matter that Fairy Circle Roach is in hand because this entire spell shield is on an entire board of V2s. This Chimera does nothing. Fiery Embrace does something, but Magic Missiles drawn wouldn't do anything. Giant Chimera definitely does nothing.
Yeah, that card, not what you want to see here. But yeah, Wind Blasts are turned off, Magic Missiles turned off. I think he might have to. Can he even play the Chimera this turn? It's on 2, so he can. So he'll have to Fiery and Chimera this turn and evolve the Chimera just to take 2 followers off the board. But with Roach in
He's
hand,
going to play a ward
I think,
also, but that Airbound Barrage is going to make sure that doesn't matter at all, so...
Right. I think this is
This
it. I think V2's
just
got
a
it in a
game,
1 turn
yeah.
here.
Just going to be game. Even if Piao cleared the entire board, right? Even if he cleared the entire board. Fairy Circle, Roach, Airbound Barrage, Roach. Evolve.
Yeah.
So, there's not anything he can do anyway.
Yeah, V2 with really incredible draws in these matchups. I mean, he is playing aggro decks, and they're going to look incredible when they draw the right followers at the right time, and V2 definitely did that, making these 2 games look super easy against D-Shift.
And this is kind of, what happens to D-Shift, right? Like, it's a very strong deck, it's popular for a reason, right? On ladder and everything. But if you bring it to a tournament, you can get metagamed. You can just get flip-flopped, and people can bring Liza, which no one plays. No one plays Liza, right? But in tournaments, it's very possible. So,
That's absolutely right. So V2 has any number of ways of winning this turn. He's just doing the straightforward Roach path.
He's feeling hungry.
I like the Goblin over the Fairy Circle. It's much cuter. I like it a lot.
Yeah, it's cleaner. Big nose Goblin.
Crisper, if you will.
That's right.
Hopefully he kills the Chimera also with the Fairy. No? Okay, kills with the Fairy. Okay,
Saving
I
the
like it.
other
Not even a
point.
Roach.
And
lethal.
V2
Wasn't even Roach. Roach is not even good.
Convincingly telling Piao D-Shift, not a good option.
And it really feels like that's what he was targeting, right? In the Haven game, he just tempo with the Manu and the White Tiger.
He played dudes.
That is a nightmare, right? When you're playing D-Shift, you have no followers in your hand, a bunch of spells that don't do anything, and you're getting bopped in the face.
Well, you saw it on Piao's face, right? I mean, he wasn't, being subtle about the way he felt about any of those games. I mean, he just wore it on his face. He knew what the kind of trouble he was in.
And it's interesting because these are 2 players, both of them to represent North America at the World Grand Prix, actually. And so, Piao was having a great start to the round robin. Vettu not so much, but Vettu saying, hey, you know what, like there are things that we need to really respect right now about deck building and game plans and strategy that we need to understand. And did really
What
well.
did Vettu do in that matchup, Rainy? Tell us one more time. How did he win that matchup?
Deck preparation.
No, give me one of these.
Oh.
I want to see this again.
You want to see that?
Yeah,
That's
there
what
we
you're
go.
looking for? I was like, yeah, that's deck preparation. Let's see,
Yeah.
you know, the notebook that you have on your hand. Let's take a look at the standings here and see where Vettu has gone. 1-3 now, so started out 0-3, not a very good run, but took the first win off of Piao, puts Piao down at 2-2 as opposed to 2-1. So Piao is now in the middle of the pack, and Vettu in a very similar spot as Bottles over there in Group A. And we'll see how the rest of the group shapes up here. Still have yet to see what's going to happen between the rest of the 4 players, but I'm eager to know how the rest of the group will play out. Remember, guys, to give our channel a follow if you can. We have a lot of new folks in the channel kind of watching and enjoying competitive Shadowverse, so make sure to follow. Every Saturday and Sunday we have a broadcast for competitive Shadowverse. There's North America that competes and Europe that competes, so you guys can see what the best players in the game are doing, what decks they're running, and how they play out these interactions and the different things that they do to fend off some of the strongest outcomes that can show up in the game. So very interesting stuff. Of course, we just saw Dimension Shift get defeated, which is one of the great nightmares of a lot of players in this game. that's
It's so easy, man. The deck is so easy to target. You just gotta play lines, and then they can't do anything.
There it is. Words of advice from Enver. Let's take a look at the next match. Care Package versus Hackterox. Right now, Care Package, interesting player. Now in Dawnbreakers, used to be in Shadow Nexus. I think he has since parted ways after Shadow Nexus kind of cracked down and you know, started initiating the pain plan. Right. I think that was the thing that happened. Right, Exo? Confirmed.
That's right. That's right. That's exactly right. They were actually both part of Shadow Nexus for a brief period in time, so they're very well versed with each other's play styles. They've played a lot of games with each other, so I think this will be a fun matchup to watch.
Yeah, Hackterox now back on ban, and I think he's started spinning up that team. He's been talking about players that he's been picking up. But between Hackterox and Care Package, what are the decks that we're looking at today? What are your thoughts, Exo?
I'm actually really confused as to why Hackterox decided to let Care Package play his Burn Room deck. I think it's probably one of Care Package's best decks. I think he performs very well with it. But it's straight across the board. I mean, it's Mid Shadow and Control Blood for both players, and players deciding if they want to ban that or not. And then Burn Rune versus Ramp Dragon. We've been saying all day, or I've been saying at least all day, that Ramp Dragon is a slight edge on Burn Rune, but because of this particular matchup, I think Care Package might have a slight edge because it's his best deck, and I think it's his best chance to win.
And let's take a dive into one of the decks here that Hackterox is running. We're going to take a look at Blood, which we all know is a very fantastic deck, and Envy, because I know you like this so much.
Envy's favorite.
Envy, let's talk about it.
Oh yeah.
Let's talk about Blood.
Yeah.
Let's talk specifically about Azazel. I think he's one of the stranger cards, maybe I would call it. What is Azazel's function in the Control Blood list? He has quite a unique effect. How is this card utilized? What benefit does it offer?
Well, Azazel looks interesting, but realistically, he just kind of gets boiled down to, I'm going to play Spawn of the Abyss, and if you can't kill it, I'm going to play Azazel and kill you. Azazel, it doesn't matter what your life total is, because you can't be anywhere on the graph there that setting you to 10 doesn't bring you in the range of Spawn of the Abyss. So, unless you have Roland on the board, Roland, really good. I think, yeah, then you take 8 from Spawn. That actually works. Roland top tier confirmed.
Yeah.
But basically, the function of Azazel, play Spawn of the Abyss, play Azazel, set him to 10, attack for, without an evolve, attack for 11, and you win. That's the point.
So the lesson I'm learning is Roland's pretty good, and Exo has been lying to us this whole time.
You know what? In the
big
scenario
phony lie.
that you want to beat Spawn of the Abyss Azazel endgame, you know what, Roland? You have a spot. Sure.
Welcome in. Let's take a look at the Pain Train Express, Hackterox calls it. The Pain Train Express. And realistically, it's just Control Blood, right? This is Control Blood here.
There's nothing out of the ordinary about it whatsoever. Azazel, another thing that I'd like to bring up is Jay-Z actually talked a few weeks ago about why he included Azazel. And it's another way to end longer matchups, right? Like against D-Shift, when you don't really have a way to be aggressive against them, you can end the game with Azazel a little bit faster. That's an option. Or even in Control Blood Mirrors, you can set up a situation like Envy was talking about with Spawn of the Abyss or any threat really, and just play Azazel down and just kind of win the game. You know what I mean? So it just gives you an option that the deck wouldn't otherwise have.
It actually reminds me of that remark that Bottles had. He was talking about his preferred playstyle in card game. What he said was he likes playing mainly the control game plan, but having a combo, you know, that is there assisting you. He said specifically not D-Shift, right? He didn't like the one-shot OTK kind of, you know, I'm gonna blow you away, but he liked the combos that just added on and assisted the control game plan and gave you the option for that end game move, and that really feels like what Azazel kind of does for this Control Blood deck. So we'll see if that happens. Spawn of the Abyss, you know, used to be everybody's nightmare, but since then, I mean, we've seen him not that many times actually. So
we just saw him win today, though. We haven't seen Spawn of the Abyss actually win a game in competitive play in forever, if ever. Yeah. But Spawn of the Abyss came down and did work against what we would consider the best player in EU at the moment. So, I mean, it has a place.
Yep. Oh, rest in peace, the Lurching Course. No! Oh, man. Well, Hacked Rock's first care package is going to be Dragon vs. Rune. Oh, what's that say? Good luck. Good luck. And have fun. You see, Care Package got it right.
See, they teamed up together for that message, though.
That was adorable. Band Hadrox was backwards though, so.
Yeah, that's right. His camera's
we
messed
to, really
up.
try
Care
for that
Package
one.
has him on the right. Yeah. All right, so this is the matchup I was kind of talking about. Care Package really likes Burn Rune. He's been playing it for a long time in many different iterations. I feel like he's super comfortable with this deck. Hackrox knows this and still allowed him to play it because he didn't want the blood. I think they both were just like, blood's not happening. Sorry. And I think Envy,
I agree with that.
If you have any thoughts about that one.
I think the viewers agree with that too. It's just like, you know, like the deck, if it doesn't draw the specific combo, it just takes a very long amount of time to win the game. 14 turns, 14 plus usually, so.
Yeah, that's like the one thing about Control Blood right now. I think it might be the best deck in the game in my mind because it can deal with the most options that the format can throw at it. But it's very hard to pilot, and it does, like you said, take a long time to win. So you have a lot more chances to make mistakes during the course of a game.
Definitely. Every single card has to be used optimally, which is very difficult to do over 16 turns. So.
Yes, yeah, or more. Depending, but we see some nice little additions in Care Package's deck, doing a little bit more of an aggressive strategy with his Apprentice there and being able to summon Conjure Golems to protect his board a little bit earlier, along with Magic Illusionist. I really like this setup. Really hard to get through, and just like skewing all this other stuff like the Professor of Taboos that we've been seeing, Calamitous Curses that we've been seeing, and things like that. Just super aggro. And maybe a little hedge to, anti-aggro with some extra wards in there.
Mm-hmm. This and I mean, those wards are kind of something that Care Package has been playing a lot. You know, like they do kind of pump your Earth Sigil. They kind of like anti-synergize with Illusionist, but I think we've seen Care Package always run those. I think he's just he's like that for a while.
Yep. He has his game plan with the deck, and like I said, he's super comfortable with it, so I wouldn't put anything past him on what he believes is the correct choice in here. I think he knows the deck better than I do at this point.
Definitely interesting. For sure. I mean, he actually competes EXO, so I think he does know it a little bit better, but...
Oh, of course. Of course. Of course. I was trying to be modest, but not too modest, I still gotta stay relevant, Yeah.
Relevant EXO. The same sentence.
Lol. What a bully. All right. So Lucifer comes down. Can you afford to Evo here? No. You just let it set it. Forget about it.
Lucifer's Evolve is just, it's not something you almost ever do. It just feels bad almost always.
Yeah. If it ends the game, you do it. If not, it's really tough. It stinks because it's
Which is why
really
he's
the only
best
threat.
used along with Sonic Wheel, right? So.
Right. Right. It is more often a combo card than anything else. Some players today are actually running Lucifer without Sahag Quill. They're running like a mixture of like
weird.
Queen with their endgame package and like one Israfil and one Lucifer just to like shore up a middle part of the game. And I think Hackrox might be one of those decks now that I'm looking at his deck. He's got the Genesis Dragon.
Yeah, he's got the Queen Gen Dragon,
Lucifer.
yeah.
Yeah. So he might be one of those players that just plays Lucifer because of the life gain.
He needs to survive so he can Bahamut, but he's looking at a lot of damage.
Yes, this is a ton of damage backed up by Mutagenic Bolts and another Levi top deck here, so it doesn't even have to press an Evolve Orb this turn.
Yeah, he'll get there. I mean, you could just evolve Levi here, throw the Fireball face, get there.
Yeah, I don't mind that. This will get cards out of your hand. Of course, what we've talked about for Wizard of Savaz late games. Plus just more damage to face. It makes every decision that Hackrox is going to do a little bit harder because he's going to be at what? At 2?
It's definitely, yeah. He's going to be pretty low, yeah.
Yeah, and even if Hackrox does manage to luck his way into an Ariat off the top, he cannot deal 20 damage with that combo, so can't shirk being defensive at the moment.
Yeah, this is, it's a tough choice. I think Care Package is really considering evolving the Illusionist over Levi.
I'm just amazed.
Okay.
There can't be a world where that's profitable. You just get more
Yeah,
damage
because
out
like
of Levi.
even if you expect Bahamut, even if you evolve Illusionist, right, you get a 2/2 Illusionist, but Bahamut can evolve over it, so...
Well, I think the Illusionist just dies. The Sigil dies at the same time as the Illusionist, so
Oh,
Bahamut's
that's
actually
right.
a
You are,
counter
yeah,
to
that's
that
right.
little
Never mind.
synergy.
Yeah, that's right. I actually forgot. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, we'll
at
see
that.
it right here. Bahamut will come down. Has to come down.
You figured it out.
And now, Care Package is only 1 damage away from winning this game. There it is. Easy. Like butter.
Yeah, every time, right? Yeah, every time.
And this is actually exactly what I was talking about. Just don't let Care Package's best deck. He pilots it really well. He's got a very aggressive strategy to it as well, with the Apprentice Alchemist and things like that. But Hackrox, doing the Envy plan and saying no blood.
I mean, both players did that, right? Like, come on.
Yeah, I know.
No
I
one
know.
wants to
It
play
is the
against Control
scariest
Blood.
deck.
Like you said, going back to what you said, Control Blood just has good matchup against a lot of things. Like if they play it correctly, unless they're against D-Shift, they probably have a way to win just about any matchup. So
Uh-oh, Care
Probably.
Package is getting his happy dance on. He's ready for this one.
it's a bit too soon for that.
All right, so he
Still
is
gotta
playing a
win
Shadow
one.
deck that does have a little bit of reach. We don't see Phantom Hell in most of the Shadow decks now, but Care Package opting the way of being able to close out the game in a combo way. So I like it.
Well, I mean, can we even say that anymore? I think actually Phantom Hell has made its way into most lists now.
It's like 50-50 now. It's like 50-50. Some players are listening to me, a lot of players aren't because they think I'm stupid, which is fine.
Oh my gosh. I don't think it's that
fine.
hardcore. They're like, man, EXO probably maybe doesn't know what he's talking about. I don't think it's like EXO Kid's an idiot. Maybe. I don't know. But
Look. I know everything, okay? And to naysay that is just wrong, but I allow people to have their own opinions. I'm not forceful with my thought process, yeah.
right, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Not biased at all, right, yeah. Yeah, okay. I feel that.
Okay, all right. But Care Package has a great opener against Dragon. He's got the Chimera into Prince Catacomb on the play, which is exactly what you want to see. Just a board fill that can't really be dealt with very easily. Doesn't even have to go for it now since nothing got popped.
It is interesting for sure. I don't know, like this entire matchup just feels to me like, can Shadow close the game out before Dragon OTKs?
This is actually why I like the OTK version a little bit better than the old school version, because the old school version is really good at dealing with aggro in a really long, drawn-out game, but Shadow specifically can out late game you if they play correctly and get the right cards and yada yada. With this combo version of Dragon, you just shut the door before Shadow actually wins. It's actually just faster than Shadow now.
It's fast in a lot of things. I mean, ramp, for a long time has been very, very fast. Being 10 play points around your turn 7 or so. I mean, we see literally Hackdrox doubled his play points already. So that's just kind of like faster than most things, except aggro blood maybe, I guess. But
Killing never gets boring.
I like it. This might be a turn too soon for the Blade Fiend because this won't block a turn 10 play, but it will get obviously a lot of advantage out of being able to kill the Sybil without having to jam anything into it. But he does have plenty of shadows to build up for Death's Breath if this board does get wiped, so I think he's feeling pretty good about it.
yeah, this is not too bad. The only thing bad about Hackdrox's game plan at the moment is he's kind of bricked a little bit. He's got double Queen of Dread Sea in hand, which is not what you want at all. And popping his last evolve here is interesting.
I actually highly expect Hackdrox next turn, if he doesn't draw anything relevant, to just play Queen of the Dread Sea into Bahamut Zeus, because there's not really anything that he needs to hold onto his hand for. I mean, he could and play a longer game, but this could also just be a quick outlet to victory when you don't have one.
That would be a pretty explosive play. It does seem weird to pop your own Dread Sea off the board, but
yeah,
putting a 13/13 and a 5/10 Ward Storm Bane on the board at the same time is pretty good. Just okay, Zeus. Why not Zeus?
Unfortunately, though, I think that play kind of got smushed up by the Prince Catacomb. Now, because Bahamut can't clear the board, it becomes a much worse play.
Yeah. Catacomb leaves behind way too much. And wow, we even see a Zeus. He's really committed to Bahamut now. I think that's obvious.
I don't like that Zeus attack there. That means that Hackdrox will not have any damage done before combo can be drawn in hand. I don't like this.
It is kind of weird, for sure. It also just feels very weird to commit a Zeus to do that, because there's already the possibility of them having to throw the skeletons in anyway, right? The skeletons already have to attack this. Sort of wasting the damage that way is,
It's the same argument we've talked about several times. It's the difference between going for the win and just stopping yourself from losing. And stopping yourself from losing can work, but more often than not, going for the win will net you more wins overall.
That was a very difficult way of saying playing to win instead of playing not to lose.
Yeah, I gotta make it hard to understand, Envy. Okay, for all the new players out there, if they don't know things, gotta make sure that they don't know things forever.
Realistic. Like Shadowverse is an inside club. They don't know how to play Shadowverse yet.
Right.
Let's just keep it that way, right?
But that's why we have two people, so we have a balance. When somebody says something too complicated, we just make it easier. Yeah.
And that's a concept really that's true in a lot of games. Like. Even like real life sports, playing to win versus playing not to lose. Usually playing to win is just better. It's a stronger play. So it's not like only in Shadowverse, right? It's not something we came up with or something.
What would you feel like, Envy, if you had to wear a costume? Not had to, but did wear a costume every single time you played in competitive tournaments? I don't know if I could stand that. I would be burning up. Hackdrox was crazy.
I think the dinosaur is a healthy medium. You're a dinosaur, right? So you get to have fun with it. I liked my ninja cosplay. I think the ninja cosplay was good.
Yeah, ninja was really good. I like that. That's true. You didn't have to cover up most of your face, though. You just like the front, I think it's okay.
Well, I mean, I covered up all of it to do the chat a favor, right? Like I did everyone a favor that day, so.
I love the dinosaur though. It's good. So I think this is a forced Death's Breath. You could go for the zombie party here and just hope they don't have a Breath of the Salamander, but I think that's not a decision you want to make. Ooh.
Staircase is pretty good. It's gonna draw first.
Yeah.
Sybil's pretty good.
Okay.
Okay.
That's way better. That's way better. Hackdrox is feeling it now, and he's got the Scyther to clear out another one. This is where I want to see a Phantom Howl drawn. This is time for Phantom Howl to shine. Let's go.
I was pretty desperate before that Sybil was drawn, if we're being honest here. Demon Eater, ugh.
Yeah.
Not
very desperate. So this turn, I think the play is again to go for the win. Attack for 2, Soul Convert what I have into play, or Demon Eater first. Sorry, Demon Eater, and then Soul Convert, and hope I get my Phantom Howl.
don't know.
Eh.
If you don't put damage, if you don't kill the Sybil.
Well, that's the thing. I don't know if you
Okay.
can afford to play that game right now. Yes, he's going for it. Care package.
Ah!
Well, getting the Ektar is pretty good here. My hands
I
are up in the air
guess.
right
It's not
now.
as good as
I'm
old
excited.
Eater, though.
I'm so excited. Go for it. You know what? Care package, soul convert your Demon Eater right now and just go for it. Be a man. Okay? Mulan said it best. Okay, well, it wasn't actually Mulan who said it. It was the prince, but okay.
Right,
All right, he's going with the safe play.
I like this a
Alright.
lot better. I feel like
It's
this
better.
is just
It
this
is
is just
better.
smarter. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm stopped. The dance ends.
This
And
is
there's
gonna
actually
hurt,
no way in
though.
hand for Hackrox to clear out any of these blockers just yet.
Ferber's pretty good though. This is the
Could
part where
get a
Dragon
Scyther
just
off of this
takes away.
summoner.
He could, or just hit that Inkter with Bahamut and or the Bahamut.
Or play
Or
staircase.
staircase,
I like the
oh.
staircase play here. This sets up. Well, I guess he already has
That's
lethal in his hand if the Bahamut can get through, but I think this is just a more consistent line of play here. Gives him more options.
Mhm.
All right, do it again. No.
That soul conversion was really good. Well, he already had one anyway,
Yeah.
but Thane soul conversion is really good.
He's doing safe plays. You know what? I gotta respect
And it's
it.
good. Look what's happening to his draws. This is good, Exo. It's good.
It's good. He wouldn't
are
have drawn
our
into Phantom Hell, guys. Okay.
Look at this. He's still not getting it.
But he is setting up a very hard board to deal with.
Yeah, this is a great.
Hackrox is screaming right now in, oh my god, please don't kill me.
He's literally Breath of Salamander. He has to wipe out every follower at once,
Yep.
and he didn't get it. Oh
He
my
didn't
gosh.
get it. He doesn't have a Bahamut. Doesn't have a breath.
Yeah.
Scyther not good enough. That's it.
See, look at that. It's almost as if playing safe led Care Package into a 2-0 victory. Look at that.
Care
Oh my
Package
gosh.
played this matchup perfectly well. He actually did go for the one play I was talking about, but then decided to stop when he got Ektar, which is perfect. And then played that last turn to perfection.
See,
Required Hackrox
Care
having
Package
very
is the kind
specific
of person
cards.
that could go to a casino and be fine. If I took you to a
Yeah.
casino, we'd lose all of our money.
Oh, don't take me to the casino. If
Yeah,
we're
there's
playing
no way, 'cause
anything
you
that's
just keep
not
going.
poker, do not take me to the casino. Okay, if we're playing poker, I'm very level-headed. Okay, but if you were sitting down at some blackjack, we're playing some craps. Okay,
Yeah.
that's
I mean, how
gonna be a
worse could
good
it? You gotta
night.
get
But
it
we're not gonna
eventually,
walk
right?
home with
You have
any
to-
money.
you
I'll
have to
tell
draw
you
it
that much.
eventually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god, dude.
Yeah,
Care
Care
Package
Package
knows.
knows it. Explodes into joy. This is a rivalry too, and Care Package taking a win right here, especially after all the trash that Hackrox talks. I think Care Package is well deserved this one.
I love that lethal. Kill Bahamut for lethal. Yeah, I like it.
And Hackrox immediately turns his camera off. He's like, I'm out of here.
Care Package with the win over Hackrox, and we see yet another display of why Immortal Thane is insane.
Yeah.
Yeah. Insane in the brain is Immortal Thane.
Yeah, good.
It's
Very
a good
good.
card.
Yes.
Yep.
Well done, Exo. You got that one. You hit
Rhymes.
Laying down
Yeah,
some bars. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Exo rap coming.
Yeah, he had that one waiting in the wings. Yeah, he
Yeah.
was waiting.
it. Immortal Thane has closed out so many games in this season. I
Mhm.
feel like that card to me, it's always been good, and people have always included it, but I feel like it's taken a while for us to see it start machine gunning down people's health. And
Yeah.
Right.
I feel like in recent times we've seen that happen again and again and again. So Care Package with the win. Group B is going to change yet again here. Care Package is going to move up a little bit and Hackrox down. And that's going to put a bunch of people tied out at the 2-2 score line. And so we're going to be looking to this next match between Jay-Z and Underwear now. To see if Underwear is going to join that tie to mirror Group A in scoreline, or if Jay-Z is going to get brought down here and go to 3-1. I guess that would put both of them at 3-1. Yep, I think Jay-Z and
Yeah.
Underwear would be tied both at 3-1 if that happened. So, we'll see. We talked a little bit about it. Is this the week that Jay-Z loses? I mean, Jay-Z and lose are not two phrases that go very well together, Exo.
That's true. Yeah.
It's true. Like I said yesterday, and like I said at the beginning of today, this is a weekend of upsets. Akamara Red got taken down yesterday. I think it's Jay-Z's turn to get taken down today. I think Underwear has the decks that can do it. You know what I mean? It's possible today.
Let's take a look at the decks. The head-to-head here. We've got Jay-Z with Shadow and Rune, and Underwear with Blood and Forest. So what about these lists do you think gives Underwear the upper edge here? What do you believe is the ticket to success for him?
We've already seen it. We've already said it. Triple aggro versus D-Shift.
And D-Shift
End
really has
of
been
story.
being bullied today, right? I mean,
Yep.
traditionally people have been
Yeah.
banning D-Shift, but for example, like Vettu, just letting it through saying, hey, cool, yeah, hey, you get to play that. Play that. We'll see how it goes. And did not end well. So let's focus in on one of the decks here. Now, in my mind, I think aggro lists have always been tough, especially with all the control blood flying around. But having people be brave enough to bring them is kind of a really interesting thing. The list that we want to focus in on, however, is going to be Dragon, which was banned out. So unfortunately, we got to see a lot of Dragon today. But the focus card is Erd, which is kind of an interesting card. It is something that is, its effect seems fairly innocuous, right? But it's actually quite effective in certain lists. A lot of people, I think, earlier on were playing Erd in Shadow lists just because, the last word effects just made sense to them. But it's actually proven itself to be incredibly successful in Dragon. Envy, what do you think about this card? What are some of your, kind of, in your head, the most effective uses of it?
I think even when I first started Shadowverse, Urge stood out as a card that was really interesting. Very old card, by the way, if you guys don't know that. Was a card that was just like really weird to me, coming from different card games. It has so many uses. It can reset evolves. It can heal followers. It can turn off enhanced effects. So like if they have a White King that has Ward that's been enhanced by Necromancy, you can Erd it and that falls off of it. And also, more famously, it can be used to reset Storm, which is the more aggressive, usually best play for it. You can Forte and then Erd her and then Forte it, like she can attack again. So Erd is a very versatile card. I like it a lot. 4play.33, but what it enables in other followers is kind of makes up for that.
What's interesting is in this particular list, and that Forte Erd combo is probably one of the more popular ones. Forte doesn't even exist in this list for Jay-Z. What do you think was kind of super scary about this Dragon list, aside from, I suppose, the fact that it is Dragon and it is Ramp,
Sure.
that Underwear wanted to avoid?
Well, it's heavy combo, right? It's one of the fastest combo decks in the game right now. Jay-Z is no slouch on the combo, either running 3 Queen of the Dread Seas to get there. Erd, of course, can also be used on Genesis Dragon to push for a lot of face damage. And one thing that we didn't even talk about is with Iella, even just a great mid-game push to have ramp if you don't have as much ramp as you'd like. But this is just a really scary deck overall. It can get to the end game and play defense with its Bahamut's and Lucifers and things like that. Yet another deck we see with Lucifers without the Saha Quills. Or it can just win the game, and we've seen it happen. Not today, actually, though. Dragon not just out the gates winning with its combo anymore, and I think it's because we're seeing a lot less Ariats. I don't like it. I like the consistency of Erd, but Ariat just gives it this feel of I can just win whenever.
Envy, what do you think about that particular kind of change up in decisions? Ariat, Erd, Ariat and Erd, no Ariat, no Erd.
The thing about Ariat is that coupled with Beauty and the Beast, it's amazing. But in Dragoncraft, it can kind of feel very useless. It can, holding double queens is bad, but if you're holding Ariat, it's not nearly as useful as Erd, right? Like if they're too aggressive on you on 4 play points, you could, pop their evolve off. If your hand is terrible, pop their evolve off, evolve your Erd over that, get the board back a little bit. But if you drew an Ariat, you just kind of die, and you can't afford to do that. So
just one. That's all I'm saying. Just one.
then you never get the combo then.
Well, it is classically the issue of combo decks.
The classic,
right,
yeah.
Is finding it. But that being said, there is a lot of options that Dreadseed can pull. There's a few different iterations of things that Dragon can fall to for that combo. But that's neither here or there, because Underwear versus Jay-Z kicks off with Shadow versus Blood. Let's see if aggro can topple the defense and lines of play that Jay-Z puts together.
And we've definitely seen it. It can happen. We saw aggro Blood beat mid Shadow a little bit earlier. Jay-Z actually throwing away a Saris. Interesting. What do you think about that? Throwing away a Saris in this matchup?
I think when you're going first, I think it's fine. It's kind of hard to take advantage of series when you're going first. You kind of have to wait till the 5 point play, and by then you could have drawn something better, or you could have had a better early game. So
even just on turn 4 against an aggro deck, though, I think it's really hard to trade into. They have to Evo into it instead of Evoing face. It's one of those solid cards. In my mind, the more Saris you draw in an aggro matchup, the more of a chance you have to win. So
yeah, that's true. That is true. I think the line of thought there was maybe that Underwear is probably following the. Let me double check myself here. He's playing Dance of Death. He's actually not playing Scarlet Zephyr, so there wouldn't be Bane available for him to take out that series, which does make that interesting.
Yes, I mean, obviously you can always go to the decision, you know, like I want to mull for curve. Like good curve is going to help you against aggro more than most things, but Saris is just one of those cards in my mind that I'm like, if I don't have them, I don't know if I can really stick a win against this deck. Being on the play though, you have a little bit more flexibility, so it's not the worst mulligan, just an interesting mulligan.
Very, very interesting. Though Jay-Z is a player that I trust. You know, if he mulligans something away, yeah. I trust him to for that to be the right choice, right?
That's right. This Angel the Word.
Very awkward Angel the Word. Wow. It's gonna take away the option to trade it.
Does actually get a real flip there. Not an unreal flip into that Angel the Word.
And the reason he chose to shot that should be pretty obvious, but for those of you who don't know why he did that, he could have gone one face, but then that would allow Belinus to trade into Angel of the Word and also guarantee that it killed a bat, or it had the chance to not kill a bat right there. So
yep, and this conserves a lot more damage. This allows an Evo to the face if need be, but probably an Evo Vania. Oh my goodness, definitely an Evo Vania.
Double Vania. Oh gosh, it's not that big a deal though. This allows you to get rid of both Vanias, which is interesting.
Yeah, but looking at the hand from Underwear, he's got the backup he needs to push the game. And without that zombie party that was freshly drawn, I was actually going to say Jay-Z's in a tough spot here, but now he can claw his way back a little bit.
Mm-hmm. Zombie party massively good here. He's actually got a realistic way to kill the evolved Vania when before he didn't, so.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Evoing the Andriolphus, another reason why it's not so good against aggro is because it does not get very many stats on Evo, just +1/+1.
Right, it also didn't hit anything important. He hit literally double Eater Thane. So
right.
That Andriolphus didn't even do anything.
Yeah, that's an unfortunate Evo, but he is going to be able to clear out most of the board here, and Underwear doesn't really have a solid play for the next turn. He could just choose to unload both of his Razor Claws if he wants to while Evoing the bat.
Snarling Chains adds a little bit to that, not really.
Yeah.
Soul Conversion. Jay-Z's plays are terrible. His hand is terrible.
Yeah, he has no turn 6 here. He's Shadow though, so I assume he'll draw a Death Breath. That's what Shadow does.
Every time, right?
Every time. Ooh.
That Andriolphus feels terrible.
That's a little stinky. He might have to Soul Convert one of the 1/1s just to draw into something relevant here, because if he plays the Andriolphus first, yeah, he just won't have the play points. Yeah.
God, this gets worse. This gets harder to watch. Oh no, Jay-Z. But this kind of just goes back, kind of almost proves. I don't want to say proves you right. I don't want to feed the XO Evo.
Yes, feed me.
But if he had held Ceres, right? If he had held Ceres, he would have had Ceres last turn or this turn even, and that could have made a pretty big difference. He might not just be dead.
Right. Not only that, but Andriolphus, another point that I was trying to make today is if you plan on playing against aggro decks, Andriolphus isn't going to help you that much. Andriolphus isn't for those matchups, and the early game is the most important to have drops that matter. Like even something like Dark Conjurer, you know, more Lyrials in the deck, Lesser Mummy, which people aren't going to play anymore, but I miss him. But just you know, more beefy 2-drop, something like a 2/2.
Yeah, those of you who don't even know what that card is, 2-play 0.22, Shadowcraft follower, Necro 4, I think, Gainstorm.
Yeah. Yep, Necro 4, Gainstorm. Mostly used in aggro Shadow decks. Of course, you don't really want to be using 4 Shadows to give a 2/2 Storm in most of your Shadow decks, but I miss him.
He's interesting, for sure. Karabos is gonna probably put a pretty big that's kind of a clock. It's not even the fact that you're drawing extra cards. It's just that if Razor Claw hits you, Caraboss puts you to 1, so
Yep. And this is, I think this is a must Thane just to open up the possibility of being able to destroy the Thane into a ward on the following turn. Because Ektar push damage here doesn't really do anything.
no, Ektar push damage here feels very, very bad.
And it gives you no options for a follow-up turn.
Right.
Yeah.
If you get the thing on the board now, you don't necessarily have to soul convert to get the ward, so you can actually, maybe.
Right,
Maybe.
he already has access to
ward
Necro
then.
Assassin, so he has a way to sack it next turn.
Right. Not that it's gonna matter too much, because like I said, this Caraboss did 1 damage there. It's gonna do 2. It's gonna do 1 damage again, and then if Razor Claw comes down, you're already at 1. So.
Yep. Looks like just making a straightforward play here. Now this is a pretty scary board. I'm not gonna lie, but again, he is board
It
locked.
is.
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So he's actually board locked without being able to deal lethal damage here. So if Underwear did the same thing that we saw happen to Akamara Red yesterday, where Akamara Red locked himself out, Underwear could have just actually played around this. But of course, if he goes down to 1, then Razor Claw turns off and he can't finish the game. So I think he was just looking to finish the game this turn.
Baphomet looking for something like Blood Wolf, probably.
Okay, this one's all me.
Evolving the Baphomet, you kind of have to kill whites here at this point. Yeah. Night Horde onto Thane. Uh-oh.
Okay. And I think
Snarling
this is
changes
actually,
that 1 damage.
Yeah, I think this is it. I don't think Jay-Z can win this turn.
He has 3, 6, 10. If he had a soul conversion, he would.
He needs to go for the Ektar into white play in order to pressure Underwear down to 1 health, and I think he knows that very specifically.
Well, if you don't clear the board, you just down the backswing, so.
Well, you've got the White King, right?
Oh.
Oh, never mind.
He got a zombie.
Never mind. Yeah, never mind. Okay. He has the 1 extra damage from the Thane because of the Ektar skeleton.
I feel very
Didn't
blind
count
for
that
not
one
seeing
damage.
that zombie. I didn't see that zombie would happen at all. I feel like he didn't see that at first either.
Yeah,
he obviously
I
noticed.
think we all missed it for a second, yeah. Thane,
I legit did
again,
not see that he
as
had
Rainey said,
that.
showing why it's so crazy good.
How many games have we seen ended off of whites or just Thane? I think
Pretty much every mid-shadow deck. That's like just
Yeah.
what's happening as their endgame now. It used to be that it was Ektar that finished off, but because people know Ektar, they know the damage it can deal. I just think it's really easy to play around getting lethal by Ektar, so I think Thane has to come in to take up the mantle of finishing the game off.
right, just so much value in that card. Man, I feel legitimately very blind for not
Yeah,
for not
yeah,
seeing that.
just
I
missing,
even added up the
missing the
damage,
little
like,
skelly.
1 off.
Time to get
How does he get it? I wonder.
Yeah, never mind. He's got the 1 extra damage. We just didn't see it. But
This should be a
now
much
we get to the
polar-
important matchups here.
Yeah. We have D-Shift versus Aggro Blood. And there's an interesting keep from Jay-Z here that I think a lot of people pass up on doing, and he kept Chimera against an aggro deck. And I don't think a lot of people know this out there, but Chimera in current D-Shift is boostable so quickly. You play a lot of 1 play point spells, you play Owl. It's boostable so fast that keeping Chimera against a follower-based deck is actually very correct.
Interesting. It's good to know. You're not looking for D-shifts here, you're looking for board control. And we've made mention of this in the past, but this is a control deck now. D-shift is no longer a combo deck when it's playing against something like Aggro Blood or even Aggro Forest.
Well,
it's turning
it was
into a
always
control deck. And
combo. If you want to get really into it, it was a control combo.
Sure. It does have a way to combo,
Yeah.
but generally speaking, it's going to win just by making those huge pressure plays and running Underwear out of cards, or running any aggro deck out of cards, and then just playing whatever's left over, whether it be Golem Assault tokens or Chimeras or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm powerless for now.
True that.
And I think we've seen this particular
also not very
matchup-
good.
Yeah. We've seen this particular matchup quite a bit, and I think my first statement from a couple weeks ago still rings true. I think D-Shift might be a turn too slow to stop Blood, especially when it's on the draw.
Oh yeah, I agree completely. I played this matchup quite a few times. It feels like It feels like an 80-20 in Blood's favor, which might be a bit too biased, but also, I mean, Underwear's hand is pretty bad. His hand is terrible, so
It is.
this could actually be fine for Jay-Z in the long run.
Yeah, without any extra pressure, I mean, a Goblin on turn 4 is not the most devastating thing for a D-Shift player to see.
Right. He also gets to evolve first with Owl in hand, so he's gonna have Owl and a Ward on 4 getting to evolve first, so it's pretty good. Karambos is not bad though.
One thing I'd like to mention is that Jay-Z chose to not deal any extra damage to these goblins earlier to make this magic missile turn on to kill one of them, or to kill the first one that was played, which might constitute more damage overall.
I think usually you expect them to play Blood Wolf anyway, and saving the damage so you can kill Blood Wolves is usually a bit better, since you don't want them to ever do 4 damage to you.
Makes sense. But now he's just got a great turn, right? He's got a Kaleidoscopic Glow for the Uris. He can play out his Ward, Evo over one of the Goblins. And Underwear doesn't really have a good counterplay to that.
Ooh, goes for Glow instead, not even taking 1 from that. Wow.
Oh, and not going for the Ward either. I guess he feels a little safe this turn because of the lone Goblin on turn 4. Can't blame him for that.
Underwear draws a pretty good play though with Vanya, so he also has Snarling Chains on this, so not bad.
Now, do you Evo Goblin here, or do you Evo Vanya to go a little bit wider? Oh, or don't even play
Looks like he
Vanya.
Evo's Goblin, doesn't even play Vanya, yeah. I like that actually, because, you know, Vanya could translate into more later, you know, she doesn't have to evolve if you have some in Bloodkin. And you're going to Karambos in 6 anyway, so.
That's true. Draw into more damaging options. Now, this is a turn where Chimera could come out and prevent also damage from Uris from happening yet again, which I think is pretty straight up play. And you can do it alongside Merlin this turn, but you'd have to take a damage to do it that way.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of weird. Although establishing Merlin's pretty strong, so
Mm-hmm.
yeah,
Yep,
I think he agrees. Also, with your hand being this bad, you kind of need a way to cast this Sword Cash. You need a way to, you know, actually win the game. And if Merlin can stick, it's not bad.
No, this is not a bad turn whatsoever. Karambos is going to have to come down and Evo over Merlin, I would expect. I don't think it doesn't even matter what deck you're playing. If you let a Merlin to Evo'd stay in play, like D-Shift can start doing some pretty dirty things.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Not to mention just doing 4 to your face every turn you let it live, which is something you can't let happen.
Right. This is one of the things that I've seen with Aggro Blood, and this is kind of why I think Aggro Forest and even Aggro Sword to some extent are just better than Aggro Blood. It feels like Karambos is a crutch in Aggro Blood now. Before it was always Implancer, now it's Karambos. And more often than not, when Karambos comes down when your opponent's not at like 4, 5, 6 something in like that super low register, it's really slow. You know what I mean? It's not what I would expect out of an aggro deck. It's like this completely different game plan.
Right. I think a few players, I've heard that opinion before. I think a few players I know have the same opinion that Karambos is just sometimes not impactful enough. But to be fair to Karambos, you know, she will always continuously do 1 damage to D-Shift, and Jay-Z still doesn't have D-Shift in his hand, right? You're also always going to draw 2 cards per turn now. So
yeah, that's true.
it's not like playing
think in my
Karambos,
mind,
unless your opponent went super wide, it's not like it's bad ever.
Right, and its stats for its cost are still absurd. It's more just like internal thought of just like the way Aggro Blood has been going. And the other thing is, like, I'm kind of against stopping my play point development. I like being able to play multiple things a turn, but if you're not drawing the cards, it doesn't matter anyway, so. Jay-Z doing his best to try to get there.
Yeah.
Still no
He's
D-Shift.
trying. It's kind of what happens to D-Shift sometimes. They draw half their deck and don't see a single D-Shift.
Yeah, not in a bad
But this is
spot,
kind of
though.
fine. You know, like, it's not... D-Shift's not even how you win against Aggro Blood anyway. You know, we said that at the beginning. You kind of win through board control. You win through putting up wards. You win through, you know, Aggro Blood having a bad hand. Which, those kind of... All those things kind of happen. So, it's possible.
I think this is just Evo the Chimera go face. It sets him right out of Vengeance. It doesn't really matter in this matchup, but get the most damage in. You have a protection for it, and you could possibly pull out a win if they don't have a removal spell or something like that. Especially with Magic Missile drawing you into something else. It's risky though, not saving the Evo for like a Merlin or a Magic Owl. Yep.
He agrees though. I mean, it's behind the ward, so it's not like
I
Soul
like
Squasher
this.
is played, right?
For new players out there too, I really want to make mention, when you have wards in play, be a lot more mindful of your evolution orbs. Okay, sometimes you want to Evo the ward and like kill something, but usually keeping as much defense on the ward as you can is best. And especially in a situation like this, if you can protect a big follower and evolve it to go face when you have advantage, this can literally just be a game-winning play.
This is so awkward. It feels weird to say, like, you know, D-Shift has the advantage, but D-Shift has the upper ground. Like, it has the higher ground.
It does.
Underwear's
it does.
out of them
Underwear's,
all.
yeah, the cards he's been drawing have not been able to convert to as much damage as he would like. Has to use this defensively, which definitely doesn't feel good.
It's me, Vania.
This kind of comes back to, you know, Karabos not even being, wow, that would have been great last turn. Not even being very impactful. You know, Karabos didn't even do anything.
Mhm.
I mean,
Yeah.
she's resulting in more cards, but if you just die before you draw those cards, then
Do we live in a world where Jay-Z can Magic Missile into Angelic Snipe right here? Do we live in that world?
I think you could
Do
play
you
one.
even consider Magic Missiling face here this turn is what I'm asking.
You could do it once, so that you can play Golem Assault since you want a ward, since you can't kill. Okay, you hit Vanya with
Okay.
it.
Going for the removal instead of the game win.
So he was actually looking for one more damage right there,
hmm
or else that made no sense.
He probably thought 2 is possible, but not 3 in a row. That's why he went for the removal instead of the face plan. And that's okay. That is more realistic.
So now it just looks like a. Oh man, you gotta push face damage though. If you do, you die. But
That's so risky. I think you kill the Urias and just play the ward and pray. And that would translate to 5 damage next turn from Underwear.
I think you have to go face. How do you win if you don't go face? Right? How do you win?
Well, because you still have a 6/6 in play. I think that's how.
Yeah, but he's still at 9. Okay, he's
All
still at
right.
9 though.
5. Yeah, that's just lethal now with the Dance of Death.
Yeah, it is. But if you didn't hit, how do you win?
That was a tense game. That was a tense game. I think you have an opportunity to win though with D-Shift, right? I guess because you don't have D-Shift in hand, there's no way to reset the turn, and all the magic missiles are gone. You're exactly right. How do you win that game?
There's just not much
And
you can do when
really-
you
yeah.
yeah, you're playing a deck centered around taking extra turns, and if you can't take extra turns, then you can't do anything.
Right. Especially because, like you said earlier, Karabos, while not doing too much, did consistently deal 1 damage turn after turn after turn to Jay-Z, and it wouldn't have stopped, and Jay-Z knew this.
Because even if he had killed, say he killed the Urias there and didn't take 1 damage, he would still get Dance of Death. He would still get, you know, put down to like 2, I think, is what it would have been, right? And now his opponent's still at 9. You still can't win. Like, what do you do?
Right. Yeah, you're right. And now
It's a
we get to see
lose-lose
if
situation.
Aggro Forest can do what it did last time we saw this in just the last matchup. No, 2 matchups ago. With Elf Girl Liza against D-Shift.
Turns out it's pretty good. You know, Liza's always been good against spells, right? You know, she kind of fell out of the meta for a long time, but she's always been there, always been waiting in the wings, getting stronger, you know, training, right?
Yeah. We've seen her come back like sparingly, like as like 1-ofs or 2-ofs just because of Breath of the Salamander and like D-Shift and things like that. But now with Aggro Force being really consistent with Wood of Brambles, Elf Song, like all the fairy generation in the world, Airbound Barrage, things like that, Liza just seems like an easy include.
This is kind of it's a weird matchup for D Shift here. Jay-Z has the advantage of being on the play. You know, he's going first, and his hand's not terrible this time. So
No, it's not. He's
He's
got
in a
an
much better
actual
spot.
end game set up in hand, and he's got plenty of filter to get there.
oh yeah,
Ooh, beautiful draw.
I'm gonna rest for a bit.
oh yeah,
And finds an angelic.
oh
Snake.
yeah.
Very nice. So yeah, Jay-Z's got all the tools he needs to stuff up the early game. Underwear being on the draw this game actually hurt him, even being the aggressive deck against D-Shift, because couldn't get his stuff out fast enough to protect. However, Liza this turn might set up for a really nice Elf Song on the following turn here.
This is gonna most likely, Golem Assault into the Golem here every time. You need to get the ward down, even though Elf Song is a possibility. JC gets to evolve first, and if he puts a ward up this turn, if he digs for Owl and finds Owl, he's in a really good spot.
Well, Underwear gets to evolve first, unfortunately for Jay-Z
Oh, right,
here.
that is true. Right, because JC's going first, right, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
right. He's on the draw. But, so this is actually pretty scary for the ward, because the ward can get evolved over, and the Elf Song can still push enough damage here.
Oh,
But
yeah.
I think he has to do
Oh,
it. I
yeah.
think you're right.
Very, very
He
Elf
only
Song
played
Evolve a
2.
Fairy. Oh, yeah.
Hey, let's play. Hey, let's
It does
play.
open you up for removal, though, so
Yes.
you do it very quickly. Oh, yeah. Go 5.
Well, he kept the Elf Song
kind of
in his
also
opening
weird
hand.
to see.
I think he already knew his plan.
Yeah. It's weird to see the first damage being done on turn 4 here as well, but
But this board looking pretty
Finds
crazy.
Owl. that's looking good for Jay-Z too, though. I don't know.
Yep. A lot of removal options here. Now, do
He's
you
got
go
Wind
for the
Blast, so it's
turn
boosted pretty
5
far.
Merlin Evo Angelic Snipe play is the question. It's super juicy.
No. Never. No. Hand's too
Never.
full. Never.
No, of course. You do the safe thing and you kill as many things as you can.
Exactly. Also, your hand is too full. You would just no.
It's true. Will you play the Angelic Snipe before you Evo? Yeah, that's how you do it.
The forest is
Then you
calling
overdraw
for help.
anyway.
Right. Then you overdraw anyway because Merlin's a +1 to your hand, and you draw naturally at the beginning of your turn anyway. So
I like it. Fills the board right back up. Says, I'm not going to stop the pressure.
going super
However,
wide against
difference-
Tisha is how you win.
That's right. And difference between what we saw in the last matchup that we saw these two decks being played. Underwear doesn't have a second Liza. Doesn't have a Roach in hand. So no way to actually combo out if Jay-Z can manage to clear this board off.
A revelation.
Well, he could top deck Roach. He's got a pretty good setup for it. So
Mhm.
if he does, then it's devastating.
Such negative magic.
It's also going to play Chimera this turn, so it's pretty good. We see Jay-Z with a Merlin on the board again, so, giving Underwear the option to kill Merlin again or not.
Yeah, this is where it starts getting really rough. However, I think Dance of Death is a clean answer. It kind of stinks to Dance of Death the 4-2 instead of the 4-4 here, but
I think Brambles
It's
is a
kinda
bit
what you
better,
gotta do.
actually.
Brambles is good too.
Brambles is good, yeah. I'm liking the Brambles here. I don't know, we'll see what he goes for. I like the Brambles.
Ooh.
Nature's Loof into Lilac, okay.
Ooh, Fairy Driver. Hello.
Oh, that's not
So what a
Lilac,
Brambles
that's Fairy
looking-
Driver. Okay.
Yeah, that's looking way better now. What a Brambles is. Set up a nice
Is that
big
bad that
turn.
I thought from art that Fairy Driver was Lilac.
I didn't even consider the Nature's Guidance play this turn. It being the only
That-
bounce in hand.
Yeah, that was interesting. I mean, really though, like what was he looking for? Like, why even
I
do
guess
that?
Fairy Driver to make him make that play. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know what else you're
Yeah,
looking
Fairy
for there.
Driver.
Because the only other play that would have made sense there is either filling the board back up and leaving the Merlin, or using the Dance of Death, and then you took one of your threats off the board, which doesn't feel very good either. So
You have to kill Merlin. You didn't kill Merlin. What?
oh wow, didn't even use the Evo on anything.
I mean, I guess the Merlin can't attack anything on the board, but you let them boost the entire hand by attacking face. This is gonna be a lesson. It's gonna be a hardcore lesson in whether or
this
not
might be a
Growing
hardcore
Lord-
lesson.
Yeah.
It just opens up so much for D-Shift on their turn when they can spell boost just an extra time for free. For free. This
Go
is a
for
tense
it.
matchup. I feel like we've had a lot of these games today where it's just like down to the wire. Like every decision matters, every draw matters. This is a great game.
Oh boy. Golem Assault into
Talk us-
attack.
Yeah,
Into
talk us through this.
Fate's Hand.
Talk us through this, Envy. Yeah.
So your Merlin's gonna boost your hand, but your hand is not too usable at the moment. You need to you probably want to draw cards first. So honestly, just attacking face with Merlin first, then Fate's Hand maybe. If you find if you find 2 play point spells, you can cast them, and those could be pretty useful. I think he's really considering Golem Assault first. That's interesting. Okay, he's gonna attack with Merlin now. Ooh, that got punished really hard.
Yeah. The glow would have been really nice here.
Well, I mean, he wanted to find the reason he did that is so he could cast the Fate's Hand for 0 and then boost 2 cards possibly with Merlin. But he found nothing that Merlin boosted, so.
Right. And this has got to start getting scary for Underwear too, because Underwear knows that there's been tons of spell boosting. He left the Merlin in play, all of these things, and we're going on to turn 8 for D-Shift. So he's got to be thinking, okay, do I just forget everything I knew about this matchup and just throw everything face and just hope you don't have it? It looks like that's what he's doing. Yep.
Yeah, I think that's what he's doing. I mean, ooh, okay.
Oh.
Kill a Chimera.
A little hedge. Tiny hedge. So next turn he has Fairy Driver with a possible 4 fairies. So that's 8 damage, 10 damage with Evo. So it does have a lethal setup.
Mm-hmm. And you've seen Merlins, but you haven't seen Owls, you haven't seen Sword Caches, so you know the Jay-Z's not going to shift combo. You know it's not going to happen. It's also 1 turn before Giant Chimera, and there's no way the Giant Chimera could even kill you anyway. So I like this play a lot.
And he set it up perfectly on the turn where the Wood of Brambles is going to fall off. Very important to note, so that he can have full board space.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, when you're playing Count Dynamics, you're going to have to do that anyway, right?
Yeah.
I think I bounced anyway, so it didn't matter, but...
And I can't imagine a world... I mean, he's already used 2 of his Guardian Golems. I mean, like, this is one of those games where I think you just have to D-shift, right? I don't know how big the Chimera is, but I think you just have to. I don't think you can wait. Because that play would be super interesting, right? If Underwear just traded his board away and didn't have lethal in hand, I think Jay-Z expects that Underwear has lethal. But
it
he's
would have
going
been
to allow him the
interesting.
turn.
He couldn't even cast the shift there, I don't think. But...
Oh, was he 1 off? Okay, I miscounted by 1 then. But this will be lethal, and you know, Envy, I don't like saying that I'm right, but I'm right. 2 upsets over 2 days.
I don't believe that one
Jay-Z
bit.
down.
You love saying you're right. What do you mean? You wake up and look in the mirror and say, you know what? You're right.
That's how I wake up every morning. But Underwear taking down the undefeated Jay-Z in one of his first losses in like 2 seasons.
Jay-Z taking the loss here, and Dimension Shift did not look good at all today. We did not see it successful at all in any way, shape, or form. And Jay-Z even played around Eliza pretty well. I think this is just a classic example of what you said earlier, aggro versus combo, right? Where it can get very tough. Though typically, I think
Shift is easy to hate out too. Like Shift is very, unless they god draw you, they're very, very predictable, very linear in what they can do. And it's like, if you play the cards that beat it, it's very easy to beat.
And we saw that today, right? Minus, White Tigers, Lizas, I mean, like amulets, like everything that you can possibly push against E-Shift is what we saw today.
You just named 3 cards, by the way. 3 cards.
Yep.
Not that hard to beat.
3 cards, and then in both scenarios, we didn't see a turn 7 Dimension Shift possible either, right? It was turn 8, and Jay-Z still couldn't play his Dimension Shift. So, tough luck for Dimension Shift players here, but what the standings are going to show is that there are no undefeated players anymore. Everybody has a loss to their name, and that's going to mean Underwear and Jay-Z are going to be 3-1 apiece. And then there's a 3-way tie between Hacked Piao, and Care Package with Vettu at the end at 1 and 3. And this is going to give us a lot of interesting math. we're going to have to figure out how these groups are going to play out and what are the possibilities. If Bottles or Vettu are out of the running entirely, it's yet to be determined, right? I still see a world where everybody below is all tied 2-3. But I don't know if that's possible based on the head-to-heads. You know, maybe some of the players have already played each other, but we'll see. I mean, I guess it's probably not possible because it would require everybody who's 2-2. Okay, I'm not gonna do the math on stream. I'm not gonna do them.
Yeah.
Basically, one of them will have to win to make the other guy 2-3. You know what I mean? Okay. Well,
I was literally gonna hang you out to dry there the whole time.
Yeah.
Rainey, I love you, but that one right there was just too good.
no, it is
too
actually
good.
really
That was
interesting
some,
to
that
think
was some
about,
roach
right?
math right there.
Because
Yeah,
if
of course.
everybody is 2-2 in the group, you can't have a 2-3 situation because somebody has to win out of those guys. So,
Right.
Right. I digress. Maybe somebody on the top has to lose, but we'll see. Okay, so that was week 4 of the North American round robin, and we saw upsets, we saw intense lines of play, we saw a mid shadow mirror that was insane, just some very close games. Exo, how'd you feel about North America this week?
I mean, North America and EU this week. This has probably been one of the best weeks I've seen. Yesterday I said it was the best EU week. I don't know if this was the best NA week, but I know as a whole weekend, we saw some of the best Shadowverse games that we've seen in any of the seasons that we've been playing in. So if you guys tuned in this weekend, like, good on you, because this was the weekend to tune in. All the weekends are, but this weekend especially.
What about for you, MV? Same sentiments?
I'm gonna call rigged on EXO, guessing how two players would lose for, like, the first time in a long time. Looks pretty fishy to me. I think we should get some investigation going in on EXO, but it was some fun stuff to watch. It was some fun games for sure. Yeah.
Exo, do you have anything to say for yourself?
Yeah, I know everything.
Okay. Hey.
Okay.
Let's just ignore Exo for now. I have a few words for you fine folks watching the Shadowverse Open. Our website, shadowverse.nge.io, is your spot to go for live standing updates. And also, if you want to know what this tournament is all about, the direction that everybody is heading in, we're all going towards the regional finals, which is going to be $6,500 to the grand champion. But even more exciting, at the end of the year, the World Grand Prix is happening. So some details on the website about that as well. 3 representatives from North America and 3 representatives from Europe are flying out to Tokyo, Japan to compete for the first ever global kind of international tournament that's including the Western regions for Shadowverse. Going to have a lot of fun in Japan there. Also, remember to give the channel a follow. If you like card games and you like competitive action, give the channel a follow. Every Saturday and Sunday we broadcast 10 a.m. PST. It's when you can catch the top-end Shadowverse action here in the West. And with that, I think that's going to wrap up our broadcast. Now, yes, we've already had... Wait, have we had Exo close out a show? I think we have. We haven't? Okay, well, Exo, it's come to that time of the day now. It's time to say goodbye and set them free.
Well, Shadowverse fans, thank you as always for coming. We appreciate you for being a part of the community. This is why we do the shows, right? Because we love you guys. And I hope you guys stick around for the most exciting weeks coming up, and definitely tune in for the finals, and make sure you watch the World Grand Prix, because these are going to be the most exciting times for Shadowverse. So stay tuned.